Welcome, everybody, to the show. This is Strange Brew Podcast. If you don't know, but you're tuning in, so you must know. And I'm one of the hosts, Tomcat, aka Tom Thompson. And who else is joining me on this strange journey, especially on this episode?
Well, if you don't know, now you know. Good old me, Anton. And who else we got in the house?
Sober Aran.
Yes, sober Aran.
Was that like Sober October,
Yeah.
but just Sober Aran?
Sober for the rest of his life now.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm gonna convince him to drink beer. I'm gonna peer pressure him like he tried to do to me.
I don't know.
I think you'll be fine with beer. I think just the fact that, a bottle of wine and an entire bottle of whiskey was consumed in the span of 3 hours might have been the problem.
That's what I said to Aaron. I was like, me and Billy have came to that conclusion a long time ago that you can't like drink straight stuff through a whole episode. Cause you can, if you're a longtime fan, you'll know this from the beginning. We were drinking 26ers between me and Billy within an hour sometimes. And it's got messy. And that's why there's probably at least I would honestly say 15 to 25 episodes that have been cut. Some are on the Patreon that were worth it and funny content that we did at the beginning. But yes, a lot of episodes got cut because I'm we didn't know what we were doing at the beginning of the show, and we were just getting drunk and talking about everything strange.
If you're an even newer fan, too, and you remember the St. Paddy's Day special, Tom finished one of those by himself in the span of an hour and a half.
And 2 hours, and I fell down. And
No. It was gone within an hour and a half. You just fell over after 2 hours.
Yeah, so if you're just tuning into this because you've never heard our show before, and this one sounds like the go-to, maybe go back, but this is going to be fairly interesting. So I guess to bring it in, before I get Aaron's take, because he's dived a little deeper even than I have into this. And then Anton is essentially going in blind as an observer.
I am the voice of the audience on this episode, so you're going to get a whole lot of wow and whoa, that's crazy from me. I forgot my nicotine. I'll be right back.
Of course you did. So essentially, I get a email from this guy, Wild Bill. That's what he goes by. And also an Instagram DM. So I read it and I was like, strange. This guy is a convicted murderer talking to me through jail. He's incarcerated in Panama. And then so I kind of don't really look into him. Just he says he's a was it not quadruple, Aaron, but was it
quintuple or something like that?
Yeah, it's fucking the murderer. He's killed 5 people. William Dathan Holbert, and I hope I'm saying that right. But essentially, I messaged him, and we were having it sounds weird, but a good conversation. I wasn't really diving in deep. I was like, hey, this is kind of interesting. This guy I'm starting to realize he's messaging me through being in jail. He's able to somehow, and he's not going to say how, he's not going to get into details of that. But essentially he's messaging me while he's incarcerated and he wants to do an interview. And we talk back and forth. He seems I told him, even said this, that he seems pretty sane. And because I've studied this and gone very deep on what people sound like when they're insane, he sounds and comes across as a normal person, quotations, but really what is normal. So then he was essentially wants to do an interview. So I kind of inquired about that. And then I told Aaron about it and Anton, and then Aaron started to dive into it. And what was your first impressions and stuff like that?
Really bizarre, actually. I think for somebody who's a convicted murderer, he seems to not see himself as a serial killer or a murderer or anything like that.
So question, does he qualify by the Quantico standards? Does he qualify as a serial killer? Or is he just because doesn't Kuklinski also not quite qualify as a serial killer?
Not quite, but he's killed way more. Kuklinski was...
Right. I'm not saying that it's not the body count. It's the cooling down period, the berserker period, those things. What's the deal with that?
That's a good question. Yeah.
You could say that. But essentially he's a hitman, which I feel like is kind of different because to me, when you're a serial killer, you're doing it out of lust, passion, addiction, even sometimes, even Dahmer's case, to me, it was like an addiction. You know what I mean? You understand? Like, because it kind of was like an impulse.
Well, what's the thing? The serial killer is a process, a product,
Mhm.
and
Process and product. I feel like
process
there's
and
a third one.
product. So if you're a
Yeah.
hitman, you're neither one of those. You're not necessarily, unless you love killing, you're not necessarily a process killer, right? And you're not a product killer because you're not doing anything with the bodies afterwards for pleasure. It's just
Yeah, this is a very interesting case that we're going to get into. He's actually going to call us. For everyone that doesn't know, that he's going to come into the conversation, but we're kind of just briefing you on how this is going to go. And you know, for all the people out there, there will be people, you know, that might get triggered quotations
heavy
from
trigger
this
warning.
episode
Yeah.
because I might ask some questions that I would think normal people, quotations normal again, would ask. And he's going to go in deep into his life. And as I want to say this right off the top, we acknowledge the victims. And once we get into the crime, we get Aran to talk about it. As far as I'm concerned, it doesn't really. I haven't seen a lot of detail on the victims.
Aran,
yeah, you'd be right.
Research heavy with that, right?
Yeah, I did, but I also found that same thing, that no matter how deep I seem to have dug, and even from like the fact that he seems to be quite willing to talk about it on podcasts and stuff, there's still, like, I don't know, this air of mystery behind how all this actually came about and what actually went on and why.
Okay.
He doesn't want to go into detail as far as like the murders. I think is what he said, but I might ask him some questions.
And it's strange that you know, especially, you know, where in the world he's in prison, you would imagine they wouldn't really be behind a door with like hiding details or anything. I would have thought that they would have completely aired his dirty laundry out, but it doesn't seem that there's like a huge amount of information about a lot of it.
So it's a bunch of American expats are the ones that he's currently doing time for, correct? It's 5 Americans. We're talking strictly about the quintuple homicide, which is the only thing he's actually confessed to. So maybe, and this is just a spitball, America and Panama have always had a very strange relationship. Like the Panama Canal is there, like, and all the other stuff that's going on.
How far is this from? Okay, where's, like, on a map? Where is Panama?
Pull it up.
Like,
no, you want me to pull it up?
Oh yeah. Honestly, just for my sake, because I've been just talking to this guy. I talked to him for a full day, and then I told Aran
San Juarez, like, Panama, not Juarez. Juarez is Mexico.
Yeah, that's Mexico. That's definitely Mexico. I know what that is. I've never been to Panama. I don't know about Panama. I've never heard any facts about Panama. All I know is that he's in one of the most dangerous prisons. So his name is William Dathan Holbert. I hope I'm saying that right. Also known as Wild Bill, is a self-confessed murderer and ex-cartel hitman from Hendersonville, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever been to North Carolina, Anton?
I've been through North Carolina.
Are you talking about that stripper you met last week?
No, North Carolina was in me.
He's currently serving 46 years of the killings of 5 Americans in Panama.
How far is Panama from Canada?
And according to the stuff I've read and looked into, it seemed like he lived like a pretty average life.
So he didn't grow up like in poverty or anything along those lines. It was just
Aaron's dived a little deeper, so let Aran.
Yeah, so
Panama's off the coast of Florida, so it's
so it's not even.
Or no, that's that's Cuba, but Panama's next to Cuba, right?
Wow, I fucking didn't know that. So this shows how smart I am about geography. But I know what I do know. I know where Ukraine is. Anyways, Aran, go on.
No, that was something I was just gonna say about that whole thing. I couldn't really bridge the gap too much between how he managed to have a pretty like uneventful, like not really exceptional life one way or the other, and how he went from that to ending up in like fucking Costa Rica or Nicaragua or somewhere, and he's like shooting people in the head. I couldn't really understand, even from his interviews. There seems to be a gap there of like, wait a second, how did you get from where you were to
Well,
that area.
That's
to
what
be
I
shooting
am
people
really
in the head.
curious of how you why you left the States. Why did you go to Nicaragua? Why did you end up in Panama? Like what led? That's what I told him too. Like he's like the hard questions are the best questions, but I was like, I want to know what led you to this. Because I
And
said, I was like, I've had my own experiences, not killing people, but going into youth jail and like being arrested and holding cells when I was a kid, right? So I understand the idea of like making mistakes, not like this, where this is you're murdering people. And I said that to him that we're going to acknowledge the victims because you did kill 5 people.
Right.
And that's not okay in any eyes, even honestly, like as much as we should fucking murder the pedophiles and all that stuff that a lot of people say, I don't even know if that is something that should happen.
Should we, or should we just lock them away where they can't hurt anybody and try and fucking understand what makes them that way so we can stop that from being a thing?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, look at serial killers. We've effectively cut down on the sheer number of serial killers through behavioral analysis and like predicting, what type of things make these people, what to look for pattern wise. Is it complete? No, of course there are.
Or they're in government now.
What, killers or no? They've
Serial
always
killers.
been in government. Come on, man. Ted Bundy and George Bush are the same person. Look at the picture.
Yeah,
Follow the money. No.
So I'm just gonna go into a little bit of his background of his life because he was born on September 12th, 1979 in North Carolina, living in the rural mountains of Western North Carolina. Holbert's family owned and managed a small apple orchard and cattle farm. Pretty normal, everyday shit. Sounds nice. I would actually like to grow up on somewhere like that.
It sounds boring as shit if you're a kid, though.
Yeah, and William attended high school in the neighboring city of Hendersonville, North Carolina. He played high school football, which you could probably tell because he is a big dude.
He's a beefy boy.
He's a big dude.
Oh my god, he looks like what's his fuck from SNL. In the face, the newer fat guy from SNL.
He kind of does. Maybe we shouldn't say that. But
you think he's sensitive about his fucking weight?
No, because he's like fit as fuck now. He like obviously works out.
That's newer.
Like
that's recent.
Yeah, and I've seen even with talking to him, he doesn't look even close.
Oh my god, that flag on his chest is problematic.
Oh yeah,
that's the least problematic thing about this episode. It's still fucked, but
so it seems like kind of normal. Like he was like in he played high school football and was elected by his teammates as one of the 2 field generals. Which I used to play football. I was a linebacker, and
what's a field general in football?
I've never heard of that. They run on the fucking field with like a sword and just fucking say march.
They have a bugle boy behind them, just. Yeah.
And then Holbert was cited by a game warden in 1996 when he was 17 for illegal hunting on federal land. He was not arrested, but he was fined and released. Otherwise, no arrest or convictions as a minor. And he kind of just seemed to live a kind of normal life in the States. And then from 2000, and there's gray areas that we seem to not know about, and there's no information. But he essentially said there's a lot of lies about him on the internet, which I'm sure it's the internet, but all the same. At the same time, it's coming from the mouth of somebody that I can't necessarily trust as much as, he might watch this afterwards, because I know he does look at his interviews after. And as far as I can tell, I got nothing against you other than the crimes that you committed, because I want to acknowledge, I really do want to acknowledge that 5 people were murdered by this man. And one was, and we'll get into it later, according to what Aaron researched, a kid. That's
5 people that we know of were murdered by this man. If he was a hitman for the cartel, there are numerous bodies we will never know of. And quite frankly, it's the cartel. I don't want to. Their business is their business. It's nothing to do with me.
No. And it's funny because, there is different opinions, obviously, with stuff. But like the fact that the type of stuff our government has done to kill people, it to me is equally as bad as this guy. Nobody brings that shit up.
No, the biggest fucking murderers on the planet are governments. And I mean, how many people are killed from the push of a button from drone strikes every fucking day?
I don't know if you guys saw Obama did essentially like a political thing, went on a stage, and everyone fucking was screaming "fuck Joe Biden," and he couldn't even talk. And I was like, "This is awesome."
There were articles that came out earlier of Obama being like warning people about Joe Biden.
Yeah, I don't trust fucking Obama as far as I could throw that.
No, of course not.
Fucking piece of
He's
shit.
a politician. You shouldn't trust any of them.
So he was a political activist, as far as we know, from 2003 to 2005. William led the Southern National Patriots. It's like a militant group, and it was kind of a political party based in Western North Carolina, which obviously does have its roots in racism, you could say. But I'm not saying everyone from fucking North Carolina is fucking racist by any means.
Guessing that tattoo on his chest will tell us anything we need to know about what kind of politics the Patriots.
It's not heritage. It's not hate. It's heritage.
It's fucking not.
I know, because that's that fan that used to love us until Billy fucking made fun of them for saying. What?
I still think the funniest thing is that it's not even the fucking flag of the Confederacy. Stars and Bars was like Missouri's naval flag. It wasn't the fucking symbol of the Confederacy, so it makes zero sense to me in the first place.
And at the height of the organization, had 500 active members, acquiring a meeting house on the main street in Forest City, North Carolina. And there supposedly you could see them walking around, stuff like that, within this Forest City, in uniform and stuff like that. And William denied this charge, claiming that they essentially said that they were criticized for being racist, and by a local branch of NAACP.
NAACP.
Who the fuck is that?
National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. It's the NAACP.
Ah.
Most of our listeners will know what that is.
I've never heard of that.
Because you're Canadian.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. Yeah, because we're racist according to Tommy Chong. But William.
That was so weird.
I know. Yeah. Wait, Aaron, you'll hear. He essentially said that Canada's pretty racist. Which we had a prime minister that wore blackface 4 times, and he's still in power. So
and he still hasn't apologized for it.
No, he hasn't done anything to apologize for anything he's done in the atrocities he's fucking pulled. So William denied this charge. Obviously, he said that claiming that several of the group members were African American, which could be the case. Kind of do believe him with that, because there's tons of group and organizations out there that have all walks of life.
There were Jews in the Nazi party. It doesn't matter. It doesn't make it less racist. No.
So the group collapsed in 2005 when Holbert left the United States. Okay, so about 15 minutes before he calls in, Aaron, do you want to get into the murders and the crime, sir?
Yeah, like I said, there's huge gaps there in a lot of all this. No matter how many different articles I found, podcasts I listened to, interviews and stuff like that, there's just these like glaringly massive gaps in like what actually went on, and it's something that you don't really see that much, so it kind of threw me off, to be honest. And like, he was quoted as saying that obviously he confessed to killing 5 people, and he said the only reason that he confessed was because they didn't actually have anything on him.
And I want to say this. He did say the reason why he wants to do this and why he wants to do shows is because according to him, he wants to direct people away from this lifestyle, because he's like, when you're a gangster, there's only 2 lives and there's only 2 routes that this goes. And that's grave or a prison, in the ground or in a prison. So according to him, and me and Aaron have had conversation with him, he seems,
repentant,
genuine, from at least from what I can hear. Right.
Okay.
But I'm only having a conversation with someone that's inside of a fucking prison, incarcerated, in Panama. So carry on, Aaron.
You see, right, you say that, and just to play, I suppose, devil's advocate a little bit, I don't know, there's something about this whole thing with him that makes me wonder, are we being duped a little bit into thinking? Like I had a pretty extensive conversation with him about nothing really to do with murder or anything, and he seemed like quite a genuine and normal guy. Yeah. And I had to kind of keep reeling myself back in and going, wait a second, this person you're talking to is in one of the most dangerous prisons on the planet for the next 46 years. Like, so there's obviously something there that doesn't add up. You don't just end up in that situation like by mistake, I don't think. And he's been quoted saying things like, I don't understand why they made me famous. They made it all more sensational than it was. It's ridiculous. I don't want to seem insensitive. Yeah, I fucked up, but they've made me like a celebrity. He was like, yeah, I confessed they didn't really have anything on me. And I think he he said as well, he told them that his wife at the time had nothing to do with it, but she got 26 years as well.
Holy
So
shit.
something, going on.
And he was like, I think the quote was, I have the quote here somewhere. Oh yeah, he said, the things I didn't have anything to do with her at all, other than the fact that she lived in my house and cooked my food and fucked me. She had nothing to do with what went on. Now, which is strange, right? In that quote, there's a key word. He says, lived in my house. Now, if anybody's familiar with this story, they'll know that some of the people he killed, he had this cool thing where he would just shoot you in the head, bury you on your own property, and then just move into your house and live there as if he done that twice. And he told the people in the area, he was like, yeah, no, I bought the house. They've like moved back to the States. When in actual fact, he had shot them in the head and buried them in the front yard.
It sounds like this should be made into a movie, not gonna lie, but
and also the fact that he quotes himself as being one of the most notorious like Latin what did he call himself, the South American cartels like
main hitman kind of thing,
like, yeah, which leads me to believe like that having a fucking whatever you want to call it, a kill count of only 5 people seems quite small considering that like in some of these prisons 5 people die every day.
Yeah,
I know.
So I can't really imagine a world where he's only killed 5 people. Those 5 people, and the more you think about this, right, he says that they were all cartel hired killings, so he done it for money. But why did he kill them, bury them in their own yard, and then move into their house and take all their possessions?
Yeah,
that doesn't really make any sense to me. It's like, if it was a cartel killing, why would they tell you to move into the house and stay around the area?
They necessarily wouldn't. And that's why I'm like, why is there like no details on this? And I don't know how much he's going to get into. This is going to be interesting because it's from his point of view, everybody. I want you guys to realize this, that yes, we're taking account that there was victims, that he murdered people, but we got presented this opportunity to do this. And I've been interested by true crime, serial killers, and all this stuff since I was a kid. I wanted to write letters to Charles Manson. That's how sick in the head I am. But the thing is, I understand that people were murdered and hurt by this man. But I am giving him a platform to essentially tell his story, which people can view as what they want it to, and people will have different opinions on this. But if you get triggered and you're offended by what we're doing, turn it off. Simple as that.
Yeah, this is going to be a rough episode, I'm sure. So anybody with a little higher sensitivities might want to tune this one out.
Yeah, before we get into a little further, because we got about fucking 7 minutes. This is a quick clip of him getting arrested. It's like a media frenzy.
He looks confused. Or he looks hyper alert, probably waiting to see if someone's just going to take him out from nowhere.
He does look like he's on the alert.
Yes.
I watched the video all the way through.
That's another thing, right, that I'm kind of intrigued by is how he has managed to survive in this country. If all this stuff that he says is true.
Well, he's a pastor of like 150 people and shit too.
But I'm surprised like the cartel haven't, like he even tells a story, and he'll probably get into stuff like that where he says, I think for about $50, I think in prison you can have somebody killed, because he was like, they just like a lot of the inmates there are treated like absolute garbage. Like you'll have 20 men and 4 beds in a cell and shit like that, and they don't get anything. They get these like terrible pre-packed meals and all this stuff. So he was like, they will do, like they'll go and stab somebody to death for $50.
Good God.
It's so great. I took 2 shots before this because I have a fucking drink now because I feel like this is gonna get
and like crazy. I don't know, the whole thing just seems really, I'm fascinated by how he has how he's managed to like stay alive in prison and hasn't seemed to have ever had any real issue. And he's even said,
can talk to you about it.
Yeah, I'm gonna like that's the one thing I really want to find out, because like he's quoted as saying like the Mirror from the UK, the paper, interviewed him a couple of years ago, and like he quoted saying like I'm a rock star in here, wherever I go I'm received really well in prison.
Do you think because like fucking he's like a big white dude, and a lot of those, I don't know, like it's fucking because they're kind of Spanish, right? Is that like fucking? I was like, right, like Panama. So you think about those skinny little Spanish men? Is that why? Like because he's like a big hulking white dude?
So this motherfucker was
That's fucking racist.
this dude was eating.
Anton's like,
Yeah, sure was.
But I did like
It's a joke.
without sounding like a complete asshole. I did kind of think that at first. I was like, maybe he just seems like this giant like fucking Sasquatch character, and everyone's like, oh fucking hell, stay away
It's
from him.
possible. But at that
But,
point, why wouldn't they have just had him killed? Like if
This
they
is
were
the
afraid
thing,
of him,
yeah.
if you said it's $50 to get somebody killed, why wouldn't he just be taken out?
This is the thing. I was, and you know, there's 1,400 prisoners, I think, where he's being held. So like, I mean, and people die every day, so it wouldn't really be that out of the ordinary for someone to just go in and stab him to death at some point. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, how can one dude take on an entire prison full of people? But like he was boasting about it. Like he was at one point, every night he would have like Pizza Hut, KFC. He had his own barbecue. He'd like barbecue sausages and stuff out in the yard. And he had said to them, there's pictures of him online posing with like thousands of dollars cash, American, in his cell with his middle fingers and stuff up.
Yeah, he called me. And
It sounds like every pastor I know.
Yeah, see, this is the thing. This is the thing I have issue with a bit. I'm like, do I believe some of this shit that you're trying to spin? He even says it as well. They bring him women like twice a week. I think they come in at like 8 p.m. and leave at 4 a.m. Yeah, like they come in and he can like have sex with them in his cell and do whatever he wants.
He said the cops watched him, and he'll probably get into it.
Which is fucking.
We're not voyeurism shaming people now.
No. And he said, if you guys got anything, he's ready when we are.
Let's go for it.
All right, let's get into it. Guess because he wants me to call him, so here we go.
All right. Hey guys, it's me, Brother Wild Bill Holbert. My name is William Dathan Holbert. I grew up in Western North Carolina, and through a series of strange and terrible events, I became a hitman in Central America. From the years 2006 to 2010, I was Central America's premier hitman and cartel assassin here in primarily the Republic of Panama, but also in other places. In 2010, in July, on the 27th of 2010, I was arrested in a Nicaraguan war zone and shipped back to Panama, where they slapped me with a 46-year sentence. I've served 12 years of that 46-year sentence for quintuple homicide inside the worst prison, the very worst prison in all Central America, and that's saying a lot. Now, I want to say something before we even get started with Tom and the boys here, is that it's important for you guys out there listening in radio land or podcast land that to understand that I'm completely repentant for the things that I've done and everything that's happened to me or everything that I've perpetrated in my life. The atrocities that I committed are my own. But unlike like a lot of people say serial killer, I don't like that. I don't want to be called a serial killer because in reality I don't have like a bloodlust or anything. The things I did were all for greed, just for the money. That doesn't make them any better, and it doesn't excuse anything either. But what I live for today, I'm a Christian minister inside. I'm an inmate inside the La Jolla complex, which is the worst prison. There's 12,000 inmates here. Somebody dies every day. Somebody here dies every day. Somebody's murdered here by other inmates every day. And the day that we don't have, it's kind of a joke when there's not a murder. Here we make a joke out of it. Oh, there was no murder today. What happened? And so it's, you live with that grim humor in this place. But in this place, I've become the prison chaplain. I am actually the chaplain of the prison. I'm also the mediator between the gangs, and I work daily for the police here on the inside of the prison. My friends have invited me to be on various podcasts here, and we're doing that, and I'm really excited to be here.
I would love to ask you, because it's a big question, obviously, is like what led you down this road? And I just want to like tell you kind of thing is that, so we've both, me and Aaron especially, have looked into you as a person and tried to look in, and there's a lot of gray areas and missing gaps of how you essentially went from this kid in North Carolina playing football to being in Nicaragua and Panama. And if you could go into any detail of what kind of led you down this path and what actually connected you, if you can speak upon it, with the cartels and stuff.
I think the most important thing, and this is something that normal people back home need to pay attention to, because I come from a normal world. I had a normal childhood. I come from a middle class background. As you said, I played high school football. I was, little Mr. All-American boy, what you'd want your child to be. I had halfway decent grades. Never got into any trouble of any kind. And I want you to understand that there's a couple of things that are important to recognize here. One, what you concentrate on and what you think about is what you become. So that's dangerous. That's dangerous for a lot of you that listen to, and I don't want to like point fingers, but it's dangerous for a lot of you to listen to like murder podcasts all the time and stuff. Be careful doing that, because what I did when I was growing up, I know it is, and it's what everybody does, and everybody does it, But what I did when I was growing up, I idolized the villains in everything. I don't care what I idolized and tried to identify with a villain in any form of entertainment, music, movies, whatever. I idolized and identified with the villain at all times, and I became a villain. I remember as a child. This is a strange thing. You asked the question. It's kind of long. It's a complex question with a complex answer. I remember as a child watching the Sylvester Stallone movie in which he was a hitman, and he went to Panama. He was in a Panamanian play. He went to a bank and withdrew $20 million. That's absolutely impossible in the real world. You can't do that, but that's what he did. And I remember saying to myself, I'm going to be a hitman in Panama. I said that to myself when I was about 12 years old. And it's funny, and I remember that moment, and it actually came to pass. I spent a lot of time making bad decisions. I make one bad decision after another, after another, after another. It's not like you wake up one day and say, I'm going to be a contract killer. That's what I'm going to do with my life. It doesn't work that way. It's one decision after another, and it leads you down deeper and deeper into hell. And that glamorous looking lifestyle that you see in the movies and other things like that isn't reality at all. In reality, the life of a contract killer is terrible. I mean, it's good in moments. There are moments about it that are good. It's impossible for me to tell you. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that being naked in a bed with 4 chicks and a mountain of cocaine is a bad thing. I mean, that's a lot of fun, I'll be honest with you. But tomorrow, when the money runs out and when the whores have to go home and to their husbands and you're left all alone with a hangover, man, you feel like absolute shit, and that's what you are. I was an absolute shit person. I hung up. Damn.
Yeah, and
are you there?
Yeah, oh yeah, we can still hear you loud and clear. I've done every one of a little bit of those things, but not all at once. We're really curious, obviously, because we want to get to know kind of more who you are. We've talked to you, especially me and Aaron, on and off kind of thing. And I'm just really curious of more of the, what really connected you to the cartel? Was it someone you talked to? Did you connect with a friend?
Mm-hmm. What happened to me was I left the United States. I got married, had kids, and then got divorced. And then, exactly, that's where we're going. And when I went to family court in the United States, which is just an atrocious and horrible system bent on the destruction of the family, really. When I went to family court, the judge ordered that I had to pay like $3,000 a month to my ex-wife. I didn't even make $3,000 a month at the time. We're talking about 20 years ago. That's about what I made every, a month was about $3,000 a month. And this was, like I said, this was in 2004. And I was angry. And so my lawyer told me, he said, don't pay it. He said, don't pay it, because if you pay it once, that proves that you can pay it. So he said, send her $800. And that's what we thought we were going to end up with. So I sent her $800. We come back to court and the judge says, well, she didn't give you the kids. And so we're going to slap her with a $25 fine plus court costs for contempt of court for disobeying the judge's order. And you didn't pay what you're supposed to pay. And so we're going to give you a contempt of court fine too. And that's 3 weeks in jail, in prison for 3 weeks. And I slung a fit in the courtroom. I said, you bunch of fucking idiots. What kind of a madhouse are you running here? Why would her fine be $25 for her not doing her? Anyway, I became angry, and it wasn't injustice. I mean, it was. But I allowed that injustice to destroy my whole life. And what I did is I told my lawyer, I said, tell him I'll serve it on the weekend. So he did. He said, let him serve it on the weekend. And the judge said, fine. And I told my lawyer, I said, you'll never see me again. And these motherfuckers want
And you
a
flee-
criminal.
did you
They want a
flee-
criminal.
Yeah. Did you flee to Nicaragua
I said,
first?
No, hang on. I'll get there. But I told him, I said, these motherfuckers want a criminal. I'm going to show them the best damn criminal there was. And I became a criminal in that moment. I really wasn't one before. But if they're going to put me in jail, I was gonna make sure that I showed them the very best criminal that they had. And I became one. I became a good one. And where I went first, I went to Costa Rica first. I was in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
I'd been in Costa Rica for vacation.
Something
vacation,
switched,
so I went to
switched
Costa
in
Rica.
your head kind of thing? Something switched on to be like, well, if you want to make me out to be a villain, I'm going to be the best villain that I can be, is like how you're, like what you thought in your mind state at that time.
Exactly what happened. I mean, exactly. And I said, well, if I'm already screwed anyway, and like to me, going to jail for 3 weeks was just unthinkable. It was like in that time period, it was like the worst thing ever, because I was like this upstanding kid in the community, you know, and they were going to put me in jail. And so that whole life just fell apart, just like literally fell apart. And obviously, I made a stupid decision, all right? I mean, I should have did a 3 week, even though it wasn't fair. I should have done the 3 weeks and just moved on with my life, but I didn't. And I left the United States, and there's a lot of things I can't talk about. There's a lot of things I can't talk about because I don't want to be, I'm going to be free one day, and I don't want to have any problems in the past. But I began being a criminal in the United States at that moment. I just spent about 6 months there accumulating enough cash to go, and I left the United States with about $400,000. So when I left the United States with $400,000, I felt pretty good about myself. I'll be honest with you. I'm like, I can do this. You know, I feel pretty good about myself. I can do this. I even escaped the cops, and we won't talk about that. But I mean, that helicopters chasing me and shit, and I escaped them. So I was like, I was pretty sure I was James Bond, man. You know, I was pretty sure that
you felt like that kind of
like,
Scarface
really
character, right? Someone who is above the law, so to speak.
Exactly. I mean, like, you know, they can't touch me. They're trying, and they can't. And I'm so far ahead of them, you know. And with all their technology and all their bullshit, they can't catch me. And so I went to Central America, where it was even easier. And from there, what happened was, you can't go and get a job at a so when you're a fugitive, you can't just go and get a job somewhere, man. I mean, you're a fugitive, you know. You can't even buy a house or something. Everything is temporary because you don't know when you're going to have to run. So when I was in Costa Rica, where I went to where I had been on vacation one time before, and there I met a man who was into human smuggling, and I had a 500-ton captain's license, U.S. Coast Guard captain's license, and so I ended up captaining a human trafficking boat. And from there, that's how I got, you know.
So that's what kind of got you into the crime world of the cartel.
Was it?
Yeah.
Not to interrupt, Tom. Was it like, were you able to use your captain's license, or was it just you knew how to operate the vehicle itself? Like you were just you'd manned a vessel like that before, so it was.
Yeah, exactly. I knew what I was doing, and it wasn't. Who else knew how to in that environment? Who else knew how to to drive a big boat? You know.
Yeah, no, I was just curious because if you're, sorry, go ahead.
Everything's clandestine, stealth, you know, like really stealth. You know, you're trying to stay away from the authorities, not be involved with them. So.
Well, yeah, for sure.
And I'm sure the cops are corrupt over there either way. I'm sure a little payoff and they would let you go.
I mean, the police are corrupt everywhere.
When I was, well, yeah, but here, I mean, it's like a different level. When I was killing people, the Panamanian FBI, which is the DIJ, DIJ. That's like the version of the FBI in Panama. They worked directly with me during the whole time I was killing people. I mean, I paid them and they helped me in so many ways I can't even. And like for instance, when they were looking for me, the DJ called me and told me to get the hell out of Panama. It's going to take us about 6 months to clean this up because you're hot right now. Go get. And so I went to Costa Rica. And that's like how, you know,
is Costa Rica,
I mean, like
just so I can get some points across, because I know that like if something cuts out, like I do want to get some of our questions in as you go through your stories, because you can like kind of carry on as we kind of interject with a few little is this essentially where the contract killing started, was in Costa Rica, or was it when you actually went to Panama? Like I'd like to know when that initially started.
What happened to me was I killed a guy in self-defense, but a cartel associate. The cartel associate, a huge man, and I killed. He attacked me. We got into a verbal fight, which became a fist fight. which became a fight to the death, and in a boat on the high seas, actually, in Panama. I was in Panama, but I was living in Costa Rica at the time. And I killed a man, and I didn't know what to do, and I was like freaked out, man. I mean,
panic
like
sets
freaked
in,
out.
right? Because you realize,
You know what to
obviously,
do.
especially in a self-defense environment, when someone is attacking you, if that is the case, right, that you kind of get in this panic mode, and you might have gone too far, is what I'm kind of taking from this. And then you essentially, like, you start to realize maybe what you've done. And then I want to ask, did it come as something that you felt like you could get over pretty easily? Because obviously none of us have ever killed somebody. So one question I've always wanted to ask someone who has done it is, what is the feeling like of taking another human's life? It sounds fucked and morbid, but we are a dark comedy podcast and we do a lot of crazy stuff. So I'd like to know, like, when that set in and you started becoming used to actually doing contract killing, what was the feeling and the mindset behind that?
Well, I'll tell you, when I realized I have a dead body here and I killed him, the only thing that was in my mind was, oh no, poor guy, was, look, I'm going to jail. I got to do something about this. I don't want to go to prison. And then even worse, I'll be honest with you, that wasn't even the thought. That's a lie. That wasn't even the thought. Was the fucking cartel's going to kill me because he's like a lot older in the organization I was. He was an old, a friend of the boss. And I'm like, fuck. So I pulled the boat around to the dock, and the boss, not the big boss, but like an underboss, came to pay us. And I said, hey man, and he said, what the fuck happened to you? I was like covered in blood. And I'm shaking, like smoking a cigarette, shaking. And I said, man, I got a problem. And he's like, what? Are you sick? Somebody shoot you? And I'm like, no, look. And I opened it. I had thrown a blue tarp over the body. I was like, look. And he's like, motherfucker, you have a problem. We don't have a problem. You have a problem. I didn't see anything. I came and I paid you and I paid him and I'm going home. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And that's how they handled it. And so then I went and had to bury the body. It was like, and so what I did, you're in survival mode. I ain't got time to cry over somebody's death. And so I went and I'm too deep in this shit now, and I just got a whole lot deeper. And so I went and I buried the body and cleaned myself up and went home and laid looking at the ceiling for 3 nights, not being able to sleep. And there, I won't lie, there's no huge feeling of guilt. I didn't feel like a different man and I crossed a special line and none of that shit. I was just worried somebody's going to come and clip me because of what I did.
You were trying to survive is what I'm taking from this, because and we said before you kind of came on that trigger warning for people that might get offended by this shit. Everyone gets offended nowadays. But I am a different type of person and I'm going to come from a different point of view. And I'm sure Aran and Anton will when we do have questions. But essentially it's survival mode, and in your point of your life, you're in a foreign country. And I was going to ask you also, did you find that you were treated differently because you were a white dude, so to speak, from the States, by the cartels and stuff like that? And then if you could then I'll preface into you getting into when you actually maybe got in the first kind of engagement of hey, will you be able to kill for me kind of thing? Or is it more or less it kind of just happened in a way where you were just in moments where they kind of got you to do those things?
So they came to visit me. They came to visit me after it happened, and it was we own you now because you killed one of ours, and so you have to do what we say, but you're going to get rich. Kind of makes sense. And so that's what I did, and so I was trained like this. I was taken to I don't want to say what country because, I don't have any problems there, but I was taken to another country apart from Costa Rica and Panama and put to work for 6 weeks doing my job. And that's as much as I'm going to say about that. Mm-hmm. And so at the end of that 6 weeks, I was pretty fucking burst. You know what I mean? I was pretty, capacitated. I was pretty, I felt I had a really good education when I came back to Costa Rica and was told to move to Panama, which I did. I moved to Panama. And then one of the first jobs I took in Panama actually was killing the man who brought me into the cartel. And so a lot of people give me shit. About a certain murder. I'd like to address this in this time. I killed a kid. He was 17 years old. I know there was a man who was wanted by the DEA. I don't even know what his real name was. They called him Mike Brown, but I don't know what his real name was. but he was wanted by he worked for the DEA. I'm sorry, he wasn't wanted by the DEA. He worked for the DEA as a rat, and he put some heavy hitters away in Miami back in that late '90s. And so they were pretty pissed off at him, you can imagine. And when they found him, they wanted him clipped and sent me to do it. And so I went to do it, but there's no way to do it. There wasn't any way to do it because he has a wife and kid there at home. And so I went back and I'm like, there's no way to do this without killing his family. And so they said, kill the whole fucking family then. Because, there's like some bosses that are still doing time in the federal pen because of this guy. And so I did that. But one thing I didn't do, I didn't ask the kid for his driver's license before I killed him. I'm like, a lot of Karens give me a lot of shit online about, oh, you're a child killer. I didn't know he was a child. I didn't know that he was 17 years old. Even 3 months, he would have been 18. Would it have been better had I waited 3 months? Are we splitting hairs? And I'm not trying to, I didn't kill anybody because I wanted to. I didn't want to kill people. That wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to make money. And yes. I did terribly selfish and horrible things based on greed and survival. I didn't have to do them. I wasn't forced to do them. I could have turned myself in, or there was like a lot of other things I could have done, and I wish I had done. And would I ever do any of that shit again? No.
Can I say at this time, right? Obviously, you're in survival mode, right? And you're in a different country, and it's like essentially, it's selfishness takes over because you're, having to survive, and you think that you essentially need to do these things to survive because you can't go back to the States. Did you ever find maybe that it was just like, were you on? I'm curious, were you on obviously coke is a drug that I've even tried that is something that allows you to alleviate your self-worth and stuff like that, and you kind of become aggressive and angry. Were you on anything at this time? I want to know what your mindset was going into this, or was it more of I have to survive, only thinking about me and what I need to do to keep going?
I certainly wasn't thinking about anybody else but myself. I was a selfish asshole. I was miserable too. It's important that we understand that. There wasn't any time and period of this time where I could say, oh, I was so happy. I was a miserable bastard. The whole life. Anybody listening to this, please understand that the life, it's another thing. I'll say this real quick before, and then I'll finish the answer to that question. You think that all of us who are criminals or who do anything to make money illegally think that we can take a shortcut and have money. We want to take a shortcut. We're not going to have to bust our ass. We can do this, sell drugs or kill people or, sell stolen equipment or whatever. But there's only two places for the retirement of a maleante, of a bad guy. And that's the prison or the cemetery. A maleante means gangster, means, there's only two places for that. And that's the prison house or the cemetery. How many successful criminals do you know? There aren't any. There really aren't. Maybe 1% of everybody.
I was going to say the entire government would be successful criminals, but
yeah, exactly. But that sooner or later, even that sooner or later will have to be paid. But what I'd like everybody to know out there is that there's nothing glamorous. Like I say, I'll go back to the fact there are some moments that are incredible. I've lived some things that you wouldn't believe that are really cool, but they're not worth the horrible shit that went on. What was my mindset while I was doing these things? I was paranoid, horrible. In order to sleep at night, and I was paranoid not because I'm doing terrible things. I didn't even have a conscience back then. I have one now. I've cultivated one now. But back in those days, I was just worried about somebody clipping me. I never ever thought I'd go to jail. That wasn't even something that I thought would happen. I assumed that the end of my life would be the same retirement that all hitmen get, and that's death. All hitmen, there's no hitman, you don't ride off into the sunset. You start that job knowing that you're going to die in that job, that when you become no longer useful, that they're going to kill you. That's the truth. And that going in. And so what you're trying to do is drag it out as long as possible and live as many highs as you possibly can. Yeah. So that makes for a really shitty experience, if you want the truth.
Does make sense. Yeah. And obviously, we accounted for, at the beginning of this, that, there was victims of, I guess, the atrocities and crimes that you have committed, so to speak. But I've never murdered anyone, and I don't plan on it. But I have been in mind states when I've been on certain types of drugs and stuff like that, which could lead people down a dark path. And I do have an understanding of that to an extent, because as we've talked to the listeners before this is coming from your point of view in your shoes and not from the victims. So there's and as far as we looked into, you can't really find any details on said victims. Obviously, because they probably don't want to expose it by any means, but we've tried to dive kind of deeper into that, especially Aaron, if he has any questions throughout this pipe up. And then but like essentially it's through your eyes and in your shoes and stuff like that. So I want people to take a grain of salt a bit, but I actually do have a great understanding of what you're at least trying to say.
Going back to something you said earlier too, about the money, I was curious, is there like a median pay system? Is it like certain targets are worth more, or is it just kind of like a, this is what we're giving you for X amount of, time of service? Or is that something?
I worked 6 weeks at first, like the first 6 weeks when I was being trained how to be a professional killer, I worked as like, this is what we're going to give you and you're going to have to do that. And then after that, I was more or less a freelance operator. Really. I wasn't like, I didn't have to do
That's
work.
Cool.
Yeah.
Did they have did they have stuffed scarecrows that you'd stab with a knife or something? Like, how did that go?
No, brother. They trained you on human beings. You know what I mean? That's your training.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they train you like, this is your first job is this, and this is how you do it, and there's some guy guiding you along. And so, I mean, you work a lot in the first 6 weeks, a lot.
I feel like Tom is
every fucking day.
Tom was envisioning some fucking sitting down watching like an orientation video, like you were going to work for some chain restaurant or something. Yeah. Like, here in Panama, we like to do things a special way.
Well, they are pretty. It is kind of it is a business. It's not thought of as, it's a business. It's a business competition and treated just benignly like you were working at Walmart or something, like, clean up on all three. No, you have an extraction on in Guadalajara and blah, blah, blah. And so, I mean, that's just how you got to do what you got to do. But, I worked a lot. Like for the first 6 weeks, I worked for directly for a cartel. And then afterwards, I worked as a freelance. I pick up on anything. And I'll be honest with you, I worked some for myself as well. Like I looked for fugitives. I was a fugitive, right? And so listen to this. This wasn't something I'm bragging about. I'm just telling it like it is. I looked for other fugitives because other fugitives like me are men who came Panama, Central America, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, and who brought money with them from the States, because you can't be a fugitive if you ain't rich, and they hid themselves. So nobody's going to miss them, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, because as far as I've seen, it was other fugitives. That's why I was like, me and Aaron were talking about that too, is essentially it's people that have fled America seeking asylum in certain countries.
That's what I'm in prison for. What actually happened to me was I was betrayed by my own people on a job that I did. I didn't want to do the job. I don't want to talk about it, but I didn't want to do the job. It was killing a man's wife, and I didn't want to do the job, and I said I wouldn't do it. And then my associates, it's not like they twisted my arm, but if you're going to keep working with us, you're going to have to do that. And so I did it, and then that was also, and I didn't kill civilians. I had a rule. I don't kill civilians. Like, if you sent me to kill some kids, I'm not going to do that. Or if you sent me to kill some guy who owns a shoe store, I'm not going to do that. I kill other criminals. That's my job. And or other people who are in the game, other cartel members. People who are in the game. That's what I do. And you asked me earlier how much money depends on the job. The job dependent, I would say, I would be able to say. But when I was at my height, I wouldn't get out of the bed for less than $250,000. If you don't have $250,000, you don't pay me. And I didn't, and all that shit about half up front, half at the end, that's all bullshit. You pay me at the end when I'm done. And if you don't pay me, I'll kill you too. And that's what I would say. I would say, I'm going to do this job. And I was, and my living expenses back then were $40,000 a month. That's how much. I mean, I had like a huge mansion on the water, and like 3 houses and 2 farms and an airplane.
I think our friend from Ireland has a question.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, and maybe you don't know the answer to this question, but I suppose when you had that first situation where you killed that guy in self-defense, and you said that they came to visit you and they said, we basically own you now. You've killed one of ours. What stopped them from just either killing you or just using that against you and not paying you at all? Like, where why did that come into it? Do you think there's a reason behind that?
Well, I think that first of all, it's nice that they own somebody that they can do whatever they want with, and that if he fucks up, they can wipe their ass with him. Meaning, like, they owned me, and so if I said no, they would kill me. But if I said yes, they could send me to do terrible things, which they did. And there isn't anybody to have any recourse. But we're all businessmen, and they're also intelligent enough to know that there are authorities. And in order to keep somebody from running to the authorities to rat, they give money. That's the recourse. And there's so much money. I mean, exactly. There's so much money. So I mean, it's not like it's difficult to even, like, I live so bad now, man. I mean, I live on like $400 or $500 a month selling fucking books. And that's another thing. Please allow me in this moment to take a moment and say that I have a book called Long Live the King, Wild Bill. And it's a memoir about my 12 years in third world prison. Really interesting, some funny stories, really funny and interesting stories. So please, guys, if you're listening and you want to know more about Wild Bill, go pick up that book, Long Live the King, Wild Bill. And also, you can come and visit me on Instagram at Holiness Bill, or on Facebook, in the Facebook group Friends of Brother Bill. That's at Holiness Bill on Instagram or Friends of Brother Bill on Facebook. So please come and interact with me. Go drag your asses over and pick up my book, Long Live the King, Wild Bill.
Yeah, we'll link to that in the episode description for all of our listeners out there. You guys will be able to check that out.
Really appreciate.
Yeah, we'll put a link up and everything for you. Aaron's got another question. Yeah, we got lots of questions.
Yeah, I also have another question that I find quite fascinating. After you entered the prison system, I suppose you were well versed in, as you said, like horrible situations at that point. But what was there a fear? When, like you said, you're probably in one of the most dangerous prisons on planet Earth. How do you think you've been able to, or what's the reason behind being able to survive in that situation? Because I would imagine I've heard you tell some stories on other shows, about the fact that people get killed over nothing, essentially. Have you ever felt like a target? I've seen before you referred to yourself as they treat you like a rock star at one point.
They really do. They still do. Everywhere I go, I'm beloved. And one of the reasons is because I was so famous when I got put in prison here. Like, I'm literally the most infamous or famous criminal in the history of the Panamanian prison system. Prison here, you can't, as an American or a first worlder, like from the UK or Ireland or Australia, New Zealand, even South Africa, you can't be ready for this. There's no way to be ready for the hell and horror that is a Panamanian prison. I mean, no running water. You're pissing in a jug, shitting on. Sometimes you have to shit in a piece of paper and roll it up and throw it out the window. I mean, literally, that's your life. And sometimes there's no food for 3 days, and like, people get killed all the time. If you haven't ever seen anybody get killed and you spend a week or two in a Panamanian prison, you're going to see that. Just like I was involved in. Well, I mean, involved. I was there as a witness to the 2019 La Jolla massacre, and they killed 15 and chopped their heads off and piled them up in the floor and did, like I said, Santeria rite, like a satanic type rite with 6 of the dead bodies. I mean, it's just an incredible shit that happens in a Panamanian prison because there's no rules here. I mean, the cops are on the outside and you just can't cross the line. Prisoners here have firearms. Prisoners here are armed. How am I alive? I think I really believe in God, and I really believe that. And like, we've talked to this point about all the bad things that I did, and there's a lot of them. And I don't want to celebrate those things. I want everybody listening to know, don't fucking do that, because it doesn't turn out well. My life is very difficult because of the things that I did, and the highs were not worth the pain and suffering I'm going through now, and I have been going through for 12 years. It's not worth it. So don't do it. You shouldn't glorify people like me. I mean, I'm not here to do that, actually. I'm here on the other end of it. I'm here to say, hey, man, why am I surviving? I don't have a response for you, because there are times I don't understand why. Because anybody can kill anybody here, and this is how it happens. How does somebody kill somebody in a Panamanian prison? You say, hey, buddy, come here.
Yeah. And they get, like, do you find that you're imposing on people, essentially, like that maybe you're just a bigger dude, or like maybe people are intimidated, but at the same time, right? Like, how many white guys are in that fucking prison?
There's 2. Me and Leo Morgan. Leo Morgan's a British gangster who's in here with me as well, but he's not in where I am. He's in another section. But he's my very good friend. But I'm the only white guy here. But that whole racism thing that's propagated in the United States by the government.
Oh yeah.
Doesn't exist. It doesn't exist in Panama. I mean, like everybody, like my girlfriend's Latino and I have a half black son. And so I mean, like we don't even think about shit like that. You know?
No,
it's like
that's a divide and conquer tactic.
Exactly, it really is. People don't understand that, but it's really a divide and conquer. The racism bullshit that goes on in the first world is all manufactured because when you get outside the first world, it doesn't exist. So I have never one day felt like if you go to American prison as a white guy, you got to go hang out with the white guys because the black guys will kill you, right? But here it ain't like that at all. I'm on a block right here. I'm on a hall, my hall. There's a black guy at the end, two Latino guys beside me, a Mexican beside me on the other side, and another Latino guy there. We all live together, we eat together, we laugh together. Our families hang out together, even in the street. So I mean, like that's another thing that you don't understand being in the first world. Like racism is a manufactured bullshit that doesn't exist. I didn't understand it until I got.
I totally agree with that. And I've said that for years.
So here in prison, I never felt anything weird about that. And it certainly isn't because I'm a great big guy, and I am a great big guy. I mean, for here, I'm the Jolly Green fucking giant walking around, you know, because I'm like 6'1" and about 250 pounds, 245 pounds. And you know, the median, the median size here is like, I don't know, 5'6" and 140 pounds soaking wet.
I made a joke about that. I mean, that like you were probably one of the bigger dudes in the prison because a lot of the people of certain cultures are smaller in stature, essentially. And like, do you find do you find like, because obviously someone gets murdered there every day, do you find that like that kind of transpires from the aggression and the toxicity, you could say, the toxic nature of being in prison? Would you find that maybe some of the guards propagate some of the violence inside the prison, or do you think that it is mostly the prisoners and their toxic behaviors towards one another? Because you're saying obviously you're connected and you have friends with inside the jails and people you get along with and respect, and you guys respect each other. But is there where do you think the violence really stems from? I know all prisons have violence.
Well, first and foremost, the violence is money, just like it is in the street, just like it is outside. Second of all, one thing to understand and consider: it doesn't matter how big you are here. You can be a lot bigger than me and still die. Anybody can kill anybody here. Anybody can kill anybody here. If I want to kill somebody, I call one of these crackheads, guys that use, there's no crack here, but the cokeheads, kids that use a lot of cocaine, say, hey, go kill Bill. And the guy goes and kills Bill, and I give him $1,000, and that's it. The maximum sentence in Panama is 50 years. He's already got a 50-year sentence, so it doesn't make any difference to him.
Even if you killed someone with inside the jail, the sentence stays the same, or does it extend?
It extends to 50 years, but if you get a 50-year prison sentence in a Panamanian prison, you're going to die in jail, man. So because nobody can live here that long. Yeah, exactly. I mean, even now, I'm fighting with them right now trying to get out of prison because they should have given me a 20-year sentence under the law. The Panama's maximum sentence when I was sentenced to 20 years, and they gave me a 46-year sentence. That's bullshit. Even the guys from the States are saying that, but the States don't want to help me. I mean, like the United States Embassy hates my act. I mean, like really fucking hates me. And the reason that they hate me is because I killed Americans. You know, a lot of the people I killed were Americans, and they think it's funny that I'm having a hard time. And another thing I'll say, and this is true, when Obama was president, listen to this. When Obama was president, the embassy was so helpful to me. I mean, they helped me. And they were so good to me. And then Trump came and changed the ambassador and changed all the consulate people and put in his cronies. And I'm telling you, it's the sorriest bunch of motherfuckers that ever lived on the planet. They're a horrible bunch of bastards that don't help nobody and think it's funny that the prisoners are suffering. American prisoners are suffering here. They think it's hilarious. Not only that, the American embassy now uses Panamanian prisons as a tool. How so? Well, let's say you have a Pakistani jihadist that is going through Panama. The Americans call up Panama and say, pick him up. We got a red notice in Interpol. They come pick him up and stick him in Sector C here with me. How long do you think that he's going to last in Sector C with these bunch of monkeys, the monsters that are in here, right? And they start picking on him and shit and like holding him hostage and making his family send money and stuff. he's ready to cooperate with the United States whenever he can, just to get the hell out of here.
That does kind of make sense. No,
Just treating it like a CIA black site offsite type thing.
No,
Yeah, that makes
and
sense.
I understand that. Yeah.
Aaron, you had something?
Well, I just want to say my prime minister gave money to a terrorist, so the candidate is not even any better. But Aaron, carry on.
Yeah, I had a twofold question. How difficult is it for you, Bill, to, I suppose, now being in a place like that where there is so much violence, and I assume you've got to be on high alert all the time. How difficult has it been to, I suppose, look the other way and not, you see it a lot, like it's a needs must kind of a thing where people will be violent so they're not the victim, or people will lash out so they don't have as many problems. How difficult has it been to, I suppose, suppress having to do that? And also, just to touch on, you said you're working on getting out of there. What is the process like for somebody in a situation like that? Like, how do you even go about attempting to appeal something like that in Panama?
Well, I'll answer the second question first. I wasn't always in the place that I am now. I've only been here 3 years. I was in a minimum security prison. I paid to get sent to a minimum security prison. And I was in that minimum security prison. I lived like a king. I got laid at like 3 times a week by women. Not saying, I want to be clear about that, not by women. I got girls coming in from the outside 3 times a week. I ate food from outside every single day. I had the key to my own cell, so on and so forth. I got put in here because I made the terrible mistake of doing an interview with Sophie Evans from the Daily Mirror in Great Britain, in the UK, and the bastards they lied about everything, and they made the interview about me. It was supposed to be about the treatment of poor prisoners. So they made the interview about me, and the Panamanian government freaked the fuck out. And they sent me to this hell where I am as a punishment to die, literally. I mean, this is a joke. They called it, the joke is this is a Panamanian death sentence. In 2019, on October 22nd, I was given a Panamanian death sentence, which means I was sent to be tossed in with the worst gangsters in the world, thinking that I would be immediately murdered. But I'm Wild Bill, and ain't nobody in the fucking world like me. And so within about a year and a half, I was on top of the situation where I am now, and I run the show. And that's not like, oh, Bill is such a cool man. He's tooting his own horn. I'm telling you what's real.
It makes sense.
How do I live here?
It makes sense.
How do I live here? How do I live here in this environment with all this violence? The only way that I've been able to maintain sanity is my relationship with Jesus Christ. And a lot of people don't believe in God. A lot of people have a lot of different ideas, but I don't know. A lot of things, I can't speak for anybody else. I can speak for me. I try a lot of things. I read a book. My life began to change when I read a book by Wayne Dyer. I don't know if anybody knows who that is, but I read a book by Wayne Dyer called The Power of Intention. And it made me realize that my shitty fucking life is a product of my own actions. I'm in shit because of my fault. It's my fault. It's not anybody else's fault. I'm not a victim. Nobody's a victim. There's not a single victim on earth. Where everybody's in a shitty situation, and we got to make the best of it. And you can change your life. And I did from that time. I was about 2013. I changed my life. I became a different man. And it was a long road. And I found Jesus Christ too. And I used the teachings of Jesus Christ to change my life and to help other people. Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. What a simple thing that nobody does. And if you do put it in practice, your life becomes good and you can live happy in hell. I'm a happy man. I sleep good every night. I don't have a worry in the world. Might die tomorrow, but I ain't got a worry in the world because I have a relationship with Jesus Christ, and I know that I'm doing everything I should be doing right now. I didn't do everything I should do prior to 2015, and I certainly didn't do everything I should have done prior to 2010. But today, and there's a motherfucking thing I can do about the past, is there? But today I'm going to do the best I can do. I'm going to be the best man that I can be today, and let the consequences fall where they may. I'm not going to kill anybody. I'm not going to give anybody any shit. I'm not going to try to make money off the misery of nobody else. I'm going to share. If I've got something to share, I'm going to share it. I'm going to give a smile to everybody, and the motherfuckers that hate me, I'm going to laugh at them. And I do. All you Karens out there that think I'm an asshole, I am laughing at you. I want you to be aware of that. And all you people out here can sympathize with me and find sympathy. But thank you. Thank you. I love you. I appreciate you.
I have a random question. It's something like I believe in dark forces and strange things. Like I'm not a religious person by any means, but I do believe in like dark entities and stuff like that. And I've messed around with occultist stuff like Ouija boards and shit like that. As a curiosity, just because my mind is a strange thing, and I like to ask weird questions, especially because we want this to be different than every other show. So have you ever felt like during these murders or the stuff you were doing that was criminal, did you ever feel like you may have been possessed? And considering you do have a relationship with my man JC, I just wanted to know, like, is there have you ever felt like a possession or something was kind of taking hold of you during any of the crimes that you have committed?
No, but I tell you what, I really did become a different person than I was when I started. I mean, like, this is the one thing they're talking about the occult. This happened. I'm not insane. I've never seen anything that wasn't there. I've never experienced things, and I don't have voices in my head. I'm not an insane man, but this happened to me. The first man that I killed in self-defense, I was at home, and my wife at the time was asleep. And I went to bed, and I remember seeing a dark shadow move from one side of the room to the other, and it was the shape of a man. And carefully, ever so carefully, I opened the drawer and took out a 9mm Beretta and cocked the hammer and turned the light on. And for 1 second, I saw the man that I killed there dressed the way he was before I killed him. And then he was gone. And I said, fuck, man, I'm cracking up.
That sounds like
crazy.
An omen. I've seen shadow people, and I'm not afraid to say it. I've seen weird things in my lifetime, UFOs, like crazy stuff. So it actually is interesting to me to hear if you've actually seen some sort of ghost or apparitions, even within an old jail cell. That's actually pretty interesting. You probably saw a formation of reality showing you essentially the person that you killed, and for all you know, it could have been him showing himself to you to maybe show some sort of guilt. But also, have you even dive into your thoughts a little bit on anything you want to talk about? But have you had any like negative experience, or is there anybody in the prison that has seen some weird haunted shit? Considering we do that on the podcast, it's just a curious question.
This is a thing that's strange. Like in the States, especially in the South, if you come from the South, man, that's a haunted motherfucking place. The United States South is a haunted place, and I think it's because of so much misery during the Civil War, 100%. But it's a really haunted place, and I had a lot of experiences as a kid there. But in Panama, you just don't feel that. And one of the reasons you don't feel that is because, like, nothing's old here. Everything's new. I mean, like, nothing lasts more than 20 or 30 years. And you build a house in 20 or 30 years, it's gone. I mean, it's a jungle, like our culture, right? And like your culture in Canada, your culture in Ireland is, especially in Ireland, your culture is one in which things are built to last for thousands of years, like in the States for hundreds of years, in Canada for hundreds of years. Here in Panama, if it lasts a decade, it lasts a long time. And that mentality, that jungle mentality, the jungle just takes back over everything. And so here in prison, I'll tell you this will interest you, I know. I know when something bad is going to happen in prison here because it's quiet and I can cut the air with a knife. It's still. When it's very still in prison, somebody's going to die. And that's just how and the stiller and quieter it is, many people are going to die. Because right before a killing, I'm telling you, you can feel your hair stand on end, and there's electricity in the air, and there's absolutely no movement whatsoever.
Well, energy
now,
exists.
when we have a church,
energy does exist, and you can essentially, it's like even to do with whatever in quotations magic, but we're talking about like alchemic magic. But essentially, that intention of putting yourself in situations, I want to know, like, you can feel essentially the energy, because I'm sure that like the prison has the most negative energy that you could imagine.
On a biological
incredible,
level,
really.
Pheromones alone would probably set you off. I mean, we are still animals at the end of the day like that. So I'm sure there is something that your brain is picking up on subconsciously. True. That's, a smell in the air or something along those lines. But
there's many times that I will go and close. My cell's open. Like, I'm the only one here that's free. Like, me, when I say free, I mean I'm like unlocked. I'm unlocked from 7 o'clock in the morning to 5:30 in the afternoon. Everybody else gets an hour and a half out every day. But we're in the same common area. Like, they let 3 or 4 out at a time. Like depending on how many are in that group of the patio, they'll say, well, like for instance, 7 o'clock in the morning, they let me out and they let 3 others out. But at 8:30, they come and close the other ones in and let 3 other ones out, and that's how you live your life. You live your life 22 and a half hours closed in, but you're not separated from everybody else because the doors open. You can talk back and forth and stuff.
It sounds,
it's not like really
sounds
solitary
like a dumb question.
confinement.
What type of food do you guys eat there?
Food so bad. No, well, like for instance, you got to buy your food here, man. You got to buy your food. You got to buy. Like, why does Bill need money? You got to buy your food. You got to buy your toilet paper. They don't give you fucking toothbrushes. They don't give you clothes. They don't give you health care. There's no health where I am. There's no health care. If you get sick, you fucking die, and that's it. They don't give you an aspirin.
Do you think that the guards have a death pool?
No, the guards are like scared shitless, man. I mean, the guards don't rule here. We rule, and so the prisoners rule on the inside. The guards just come and unlock the doors and stuff and try and hope that nobody kills them. You know what I mean? The guards walk around with a billy club and the prisoners are armed with firearms. Who do you think runs the show? You can't leave. That's the thing. If you try to leave, they'll kill you. The guards, the cops on the outside perimeter will kill you. But apart from that, whatever happens on the inside, pretty much, I'm in the most restricted area. There's areas that are never closed in. Nobody's ever closed in a cell. You're just kind of thrown in. Everybody's just kind of thrown in there, living in ramshackle in the room. I lived in a place in the minimum security. I lived in a place that was like the lost city. There was 800 men that were loose inside a confined area, and that's just it. I mean, at 3 o'clock in the morning, if you want something to eat, you have somebody. You go to the store and you buy something to eat inside. And that was just. And so I mean, like, this is a really strange. It's nothing like prison in the States, Canada, Ireland, UK, Australia. It's not even, you can't even compare it. This is a fucking concentration camp.
I know I touched on it earlier, Bill, about your ability to, I suppose, survive in a place like that. But has anybody tried to essentially fuck with you since you've been in prison there? Because to me, it sounds like it's not really set up for any kind of, I suppose, state of reform or anything. You're just kind of thrown in there and they don't really give a shit what happens to anybody for any particular reason. And I'm just fascinated by how you've been able to, I suppose, turn away from that, because it seems like it's set up to just have all those people in there and they will just continue to behave as they did on the outside.
Well, they behave worse, a lot worse. You get kids that come in here for robbery that leave really well-trained assassins. I mean, it gets worse. And it's just, you're not rehabilitated, you're dehabilitated in prison here. And I think that happens everywhere in all prisons, but it really happens here. The gang bosses love to see those kids that are 18 years old come in from the streets that are fresh, that don't know shit about chat, because they bring them in and they put them to work. And they train them up and they put them to work. And so that situation, that's one thing. Another thing is, like, here, you got to join a gang. If you don't have any money, you got to join a gang, because you can't live. I mean, there's no way. You can't live. You can't make any. You can't eat. You can't bathe. If you don't belong to somebody, if somebody doesn't take care of you, and the state's not doing it, there's no rehabilitation whatsoever here. I can't remember, what was the first part of your question. I'm sorry, Aaron.
Since you've been in prison, has anybody tried to fuck with you, or do you find that people, have you ever been in situations, I don't know how much in detail you can get, but in situations where you're like, shit, there is no way out for me other than to be Wild Bill, I guess? Yeah,
there's certainly. The first year I was in prison, I had 6 different people try to kill me, and they wanted to kill me because I'm Wild Bill, and they wanted to be the person to kill Wild Bill. Didn't turn out real well for them. I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, and not to brag, I mean, I'm a bad motherfucker. I mean, really, and that's another reason that makes me that I'm so relaxed. I don't need anything to prove to anybody. I know who I am. I teach martial arts here and boxing. And the martial arts I teach really isn't. It's like mixed martial arts. It's not something that I was never trained. I've never been trained in martial arts, but I used to fight a lot. And when I came to prison, there was an MMA club, and we fought every day. I mean, like, you fight every day. It's like some shit off a movie, but it's really true. And then I learned a guy named Cordoba, who was a really high, big-time boxer in the international boxing world, was in prison and taught me to box. And so I began fighting. I fought, I fought 9 times. I lost my first match because I'd never boxed before. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and I lost my first match. But then I went 8-0 undefeated, and then got sent here where there's no actual boxing club. And there's some really good boxers in Panama. It's one of the things they're noted for. And so I teach boxing here. I fought MMA for 2 years on the inside from 2011 to 2013. But I broke my nose so many fucking times that I was afraid. I have a deviated septum that's so bad you can't breathe through it at all. It's just like having a plug there. It doesn't work at all.
Yeah, I know people that have that because of cocaine.
I didn't. You asked me a cocaine question. I'll tell you a funny story because you guys like funny stories. I was living in Jaco with another hitman, and we were on the beach, and we had Jaco's in Costa Rica, and there are like a lot of hookers there, right? But I've never paid any girl for sex in my life. I don't have to. I mean, I don't. It's like a personal thing for me. But the hookers would come and stay with us and like on their time off, you know. So they had like all these beautiful girls hanging around all the time. Like, hey, and I would buy cocaine in kilos, and I'd never done cocaine in my life, but I would buy it in half kilos, 500 grams at a time, and I had it in a safe there, and I would bring the girls their breakfast every morning on a mirror. Well, anyway, there was these 2 little black girls that came in from Limon, and they were not twins, but they were like they were cousins, and they looked exactly the same. And I was so excited, I was going to fuck them both, you know, and I was excited about it. And so they're like, Daddy, come and do a line with us. I'm like, no, you know, I don't do that shit. But thanks, but here's some for you guys, you know. I'm like, no. And so they talked me into it. So I did a line of cocaine. I was like, shit, this is great. So then I did another line. I said, this is great. I did another line. I said, let's go upstairs and fuck. And I went upstairs and my dick would do absolutely nothing. And I was horrified. I thought, oh my God, I'm broken. I'm not okay. And the girls are laughing. They're like, that happens to guys when they do cocaine. I'm like, well, you stupid bitches. Why did you tell me to do cocaine if we're going to get, you know, I mean, like, we're going to go upstairs and screw, and you give me something that's going to make my Johnson not work. So I drank a bunch of, they gave me milk. I drank milk for and waited like 2 hours and fucked them both. But that's my cocaine experience. And the reason I don't use cocaine or didn't on the outside, like if we're going to go fishing, like there's like the 4 of us, we're all going to go fishing, man. Let's do a couple lines of blow, you know, that sounds good.
Yeah.
But if there are going to be girls around, it affects my ability to have sex. And that's like my drug, you know, like having sex with women was.
I've seen cocaine fuck people's heads up entirely, and cocaine and milk reminds me of David Bowie because
I was thinking the same thing. The David
Bowie
Bowie
was
diet.
addicted to cocaine, milk, and what was it? Pickles or cucumbers? Peppers. Weird story.
So yeah, so that was one thing, and then like I'll tell this story. It's in my book. I want you guys to go buy my book. So I'm gonna tell a story out of my book real fast, and then we're running out of time. But
yeah, Ariel, they've got any more questions?
I was in the prison. I was really, check this out, you'll like this story. I was really famous, right? And they were going to transfer me from the maximum security prison to minimum security prison. And the guy that was transferring me, the major that was in the major of the police that was in charge of the prison transfer was a friend of mine. I knew him. And he said, hey, Bill, when we transfer you, it's like 8-hour drive. We're going to pick up a couple of hookers because we're going to stay the night over there and fuck these hookers. And I said, cool. And they're like, war cops. So these 4 guys are going to fuck these 4 girls. So we're driving across the river there, and they stop and they pick up these 2 girls. And they're like 18, 19 years old. Well, they're in the bus and they're talking to the cop, and they ask the cop, and she asks the cop something, and the cop says no, like no. My friend the major says no. She asks him again. So he comes back and she says, hey, you want to fuck this hooker, or you want to fuck this girl? He didn't say hooker, but you want to fuck this girl? I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? And he says, but I can't let your hands go, and so I can't take you out of handcuffs, Bill. And I'm like, well, just like disconnect the handcuffs from like the belt, and let me at least bring my hands up. So this girl comes and sits on top of me, and these cops are like the most unchivalrous. They're like, just watch. They're like, I'll watch. I'm like a porno set. I'm like really uncomfortable. I mean, like extremely uncomfortable. So the girl, she straddles me, and I finally finish, and it's like not really easy to finish because it wasn't very much fun. And she's excited. She takes a picture with me with herself with her BlackBerry. This was back in the time of BlackBerry. She takes a picture of me with her BlackBerry. Then her friend, about an hour later, asked the cop, and said, "You want to fuck the other one?" I'm like, "Yeah, not really, but yeah, sure." So we do it again. And so I'm certain that maybe in the history of the world, I'm the only prisoner that's ever fucked 2 hookers on prison transfer.
That's a crazy story.
So that story,
and,
the true story.
Yeah, no. And the thing is too, as we've had conversations before this, and I've said this at the beginning of this, that you sound genuine in the way you speak. And I can smell bullshit because my prime minister is Justin Trudeau, and he spews bullshit every time he talks. So you seem genuine with what you say. And to me, more or less, there you could gain something you could say, but at the same time, what really would you have to gain by talking and telling these stories on a podcast, so to speak? It doesn't really help your situation. Obviously, hopes maybe you sell more books and stuff like that. But that I do think that when you speak, it sounds genuine. And I want to make sure everyone's getting questions before obviously this gets wrapped up.
Yeah, I had a question, Bill. In an ideal world, obviously within reason for the situation you're in now, how does the rest of your life play out ideally for you?
I got a couple of ways to get out of prison legally. Two options. I'm pursuing one right now, and if it fails, I'll pursue the other one. And let's say that I get out. I want to write. I'm a pretty good writer, actually. I wrote a book. That was my first book I published. I'm publishing a second one right now. I'm writing it still, called Concentration Camp 2000. The story of the La Jolla massacre in 2000, the candid story of the La Jolla massacre in 2019, and just the general situation of prisoners in the Republic of Panama. And that's one thing. And then I want to write and I want to speak. I'm a good speaker. I'm an entertainer. I'm a really good entertainer. It seems insane. Like a hitman could go and be an entertainer, but I think people probably come and listen to me talk.
Do some stand-up comedy.
And so yeah, I mean, I think that's what I want to do with my life. If I can get out and get back to the States, or even, I would really like to go to Europe. I don't really want to go back to the States. I'd like to go to Europe. I'd like to go, and I got a lot of friends in the UK, and I got some German friends too. And so I really like it over there. I mean, I don't know if I like it over there. I've been to the UK before, but I think I'd like to go over there. I like being the different one. I like being the one that's not the same. In the States, every other idiot looks like me and is like me, and so there's nobody like me, is there? But I mean, you know what I'm trying to say. I mean, I'm not that special, and I like being in a world where I'm the only one.
It makes sense.
A lot of people want to be.
They wouldn't let you in Canada. I couldn't even leave my country for 2 years because I didn't get a needle that they wanted me to. So
exactly, Australia either. I can't. I got a lot of chicks that I want to see in Australia. I love the Australian girls, but
let's
I
talk
can't
about
go to
that.
Australia
Actually,
either.
that's a good question.
Let's talk about that. Yeah, let's talk about
so
because I got a lot.
Yeah, because obviously I've studied. I'm not saying you're a serial killer, but I've studied serial killers and true crime, and there's always a flock of women. These women come out of the woodwork because I don't know. A lot of times they think that they can either fix the men that have the issues, or they're turned on by it in some way because it is taboo, you could say. And this happens all the time. Richard Ramirez had the women in black. They would show up to his prison outside of his window. Ted Bundy had this. Numerous crime figures had this too. So do you get a lot of letters from females, and do you get a lot of letters in general from people, and what do they say?
Well, I have Wild Bill Hose. And I love my hose. I embraced it, actually. I was a big, fat, ugly-looking fucker when I got put in prison, and I didn't like that, so I put myself in great physical condition. I'm a fairly attractive man today. And if you can look at any current pictures of me, you'll see that I'm a fairly attractive man. And I was really nervous around girls.
Pictures throughout this whole episode.
So I was really nervous around girls my whole life, actually. And when I got put in prison, I became a celebrity. And so for like 3 years, I got to fuck a lot of girls, like a lot, like hundreds of different girls in prison while I was in prison. Like, Panamanian prison, like a minimum security prison, $100 bribe, you get 4 or 5 hours, in your cell with a girl. So, I mean, that was one thing. And like all the Panamanian girls came out to fuck Wild Bill. And so I became a ladies' man overnight. And then that shit gets old. I mean, you wouldn't think it would, but I'm not Bilzerian, I mean, it gets old to me. They're all the same. There's no substance at all. And so, like I married a Panamanian woman, which was just a horrible mistake, and got divorced. And now I have a Panamanian girlfriend who's just wonderful. So I mean, like, there are good people and bad people everywhere. It's not just can't group anybody together. But what I like to say about that, I have Wild Bill hose, and my hose. I even sold shirts for a long time. I'm trying to be more serious now. When I first started being like a personality, I was like going to make a dark joke out of the whole thing. You know what I mean? Like I even drew caricatures of myself like a monster and stuff, and I sold them, and I was going to make a joke out of it, but my convictions, my conscience, God, Jesus Christ bothered me, like the Holy Spirit bothered me, and he's like, hey, is that really what the legacy you want to leave behind? And it's not. The legacy I want to leave behind is like, you know, anybody can change, even Wild Bill. If Wild Bill can change, what's your excuse? Get your ass in gear and change and be a better person. And so I wanted to be more serious. And so I stopped selling my Wild Bill hoodie. I sold panties with my face on them. And I had a commercial, and it went like this. This is the commercial. It went, ladies, would you like a little Wild Bill on your hoo-ha? Well, buy yourself a pair of panties with my face on it. You know, that was like how the commercial went, and I sold the shit out of them too for a long time. There's like a lot of girls walking around with their face on my face on their cooter. You know, that's pretty cool. I like that.
You do have a radio voice. You could definitely, you could do a podcast because you do have a radio voice.
Wild Bill coming to you from inside the most dangerous prison in Central America. Yeah, I do have a radio. I got a face for radio, man.
The phone call is not me think coast to coast too. It's great.
So yeah, that was one thing I did, and so I have a lot of girls that like me, and I love my girls, and I treat them with respect. And like one lady got offended. Actually, men get offended more to me because I call my girls hoes. And like, why did you call them hoes? Because I can. Because I can call them hoes, and they love me.
As Snoop Dogg.
Even if
bitches ain't shit.
Another man can't. I can call them hoes because I'm Wild Bill, and you can't, you stupid motherfucker. But I can. I'm Wild Bill, and so who's like Wild Bill? Who is? And so I don't. I mean, I never did before, but I did it kind of as a joke, you know.
Yeah, it's a good. I get where you're coming from.
Ted Bundy had his hoes, and that was where the term came from. I did on the interview, and I said, well, all these Ted Bundy hoes keep writing me, asking me serial killer questions, and I'm not a fucking serial killer. I don't want to be one either. That doesn't even sound like. God, you know, I want to be a lot far away from that. And so I said, he's got his hose. Well, I got my hose. So I called them Wild Bill hose, and I made shirts, and all the girls wanted the shirt. You know, they bought blankets. There were blankets, Wild Bill hoe. I'm a Wild Bill hoe, it said in the blanket. And she's sleeping in her Wild Bill hoe blanket. God bless you, darling. Daddy loves you.
I think that's actually really
Bill,
funny.
how difficult, I suppose, was it to not completely lean into that? Because just from hearing you talk, I can... you know, and obviously with no real perspective on it, but just from, you know, the stories you've told so far, I can kind of see how this thing could snowball into a situation, and then, you know, you get to a stage where it's like you're drinking your own Kool-Aid, I guess, and you're going like, yeah, I am fucking Wild Bill, and I can do whatever, and you know, I'm gonna sell fucking blankets with my name on it and stuff.
What you just said is the key. I drank my own Kool-Aid, and it put me where I am. I'm wise. I'm wise because of the hammer strokes that I felt on my head. I know I'm not fooled anymore. I know that I'm just a dumb fucker that is in a weird situation. I know that I'm not special, you know. I know that. But I didn't before. When I was killing people, when I was out in the world, flying my airplane, scrogging all the girls, doing all the shit, doing all the coke, making all the money, sleeping on a bed with $1 million beneath it. You know, I thought that I was really some kind of special shit. But I'm not. I'm just a dude. I'm just a dude living a life, and I'm not stupid enough to make that same mistake twice. And that's the thing. What you said, I started to do exactly what you were asking. I started to get consumed, like all these girls love me and all these things and all this. And I started to get consumed by it, and I said, I'm not going to do it for money. I'm not going to do it again because I was rich and I was fucking miserable, and now I'm poor as hell. I'm so poor, and I'm so happy. I sleep like a baby every night, and I don't want to be in prison. I don't want to be in hell. But even though I am in this place, I'm happy. And a lot of people are out there in the world, and they're not happy, and they're in a much better position I am, and I'm happy. And so, and like, hey man, I wouldn't trade my happiness for money.
Is a state of mind. And I mentioned, I'm going to let Aaron talk, but I mentioned to you that I use psychedelic stuff like that. I would like to see them use it more in prison facilities, and I think it could change situations for certain prisoners and their mental health for sure. But let Aaron come into this conversation.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, I guess to follow on from that question, you know, you spoke about at one point maybe the point of your life being chicks, money, drugs, whatever. For you now, I guess, what do you feel like the point of life is, or your life is? I don't even necessarily mean from a point of view of like, you know, what would you like to do, but what do you feel like, you know, the point of your existence is?
Well, like the whole reason I'm even doing this show is because I want people to be very careful about the choices that they make in life. Because I didn't wake up one day and want to be a killer. I woke up one day and made a bad choice. And I made a bad choice on top of that bad choice, and I made 1,000 other bad choices that led me down this road. So I am a prophet. I am the prophet that's come to tell you to be very careful about what you put your attention on. Put your attention on good things. Don't worry about bad things. Don't even pay attention. Don't watch the fucking news. Turn the news off. Don't watch movies about, I mean, like, this is going to like be against most of the people who listen to this, but don't watch movies about killing people and all that sort of shit. I mean, like, what do you want for your life? Focus on that. What would you want for your kids? Focus on that. And that's another thing too. Pay careful attention to what your children are listening to, what they're participating in, so on and so forth, because this world, your mind is generating your future, your decisions. What you think becomes what you say, and what you say becomes what you do, and what you do becomes your habits, and your habits become your character, and your character becomes who you are.
I do agree.
So it all starts with it all starts with what you think and what you're putting in. What are you taking in? What are you spending time thinking about? Because in this life, you get two things. Listen to this. If you've never listened to anything I've said before, listen to this. In this life, you get two things. You get what you want, and you get what you fear. Why? Because those are the two things you spend the most time thinking about. You spend the time thinking about what you'd really like to have, and you spend the most time thinking about what you're afraid of. Stop fucking being afraid. Stop thinking about things you're afraid of. I ain't got time to worry about nobody killing me. If that happens, well, it's already written down anyway. My day to die is already written down. I ain't got time to worry about that shit. I'm trying to enjoy the day.
A wise woman once said to me, "What you fear, you bring near."
It's true. You get what you fear. What are you afraid? I was afraid to go to jail. Horrified to go to prison. Where am I? In prison.
I'm afraid of reptilians.
I was afraid I would lose my life. Well, maybe they'll come in for a drink later, you know, who knows? But I was afraid. I was afraid to lose my wife. I lost my wife. I ain't got time to be afraid of shit. You know, I don't have time to be afraid of anything anymore. I have so many hopes and dreams, and I'm doing impossible. It's impossible that I could be speaking to you here.
This is pretty incredible. The fact that we're even doing this anyway, and you know, and I don't like and people like, you know, might get triggered or offended or, you know, think what we're doing here is crazy or something like that. But at the same time, like, this is the world we live in, and you know, crimes are committed all around the world. Every second that we're talking about this, someone's getting murdered or something's happening that is atrocious and bad. But this idea of that, like, we have to understand too that we are all still humans living this like experience, so to speak. So to hear it from someone like a perspective that most people maybe don't hear it from, I think does hold some validity and value towards people to understand that, at least according to you and what we're getting from the conversation, is that you do just you want to be a better person, you want to excel and still live a life here, but you've also spent 12 years in prison, so you've had a lot of time to think, because all you do is think and sit around and have to ponder over life and your life and what you've done and stuff like that.
You know, I'll tell you something though. What you said last isn't true. I don't spend a minute thinking about the things I did in the past. I don't have time for that shit. And people say, "Oh, I thought you were repentant." I'm totally repentant. I would never repeat any of those terrible things I did, and I'm embarrassed of them. But I don't spend any time thinking about them because there ain't a damn thing I can do about changing them.
What do you
so,
think
you know what I mean? I've moved on. What I'm going to eat tomorrow, why Billy Bob wants to kill Joe Bob, what do I need to do about that? You know, like, it's my job, right? I try to keep the peace.
You try to be a mediator, you find, if there is conflict?
I am the government assigned mediator between the gangs. That's my job. That's my function here. That's why I'm loose inside the prison. And I'm good at my job. I worry about my son. I have a small son who's 16 months old. I worry about him. I want to make sure that he's educated properly and doesn't grow up to be another Panamanian. You know what I mean? I worry about my girlfriend and make sure she's okay. I support her from inside here. She supports me too. I have a life, man. I'm a good life. I have a life.
Yeah,
And this is the thing that pisses a lot of people off.
Because you're living.
I have a better life than most of you motherfuckers. I have a better life than most of you motherfuckers listening to this, if you want the truth. And that's because I choose to, because I choose to not allow my limitations, of my past. You can't do anything about the things you've done in your life. You sit around worrying about what you did. You can't do it. I mean, but you shouldn't repeat it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm totally repentant. Well, you don't feel bad. I don't feel bad. I did. I spent time feeling bad, so I stopped and I changed myself. I made myself better to never make those mistakes again. I don't have to feel bad about it anymore. I've been forgiven. If man doesn't want to forgive me, man can run his tongue down the crack of my ass. I don't care. I don't care what anybody listening to this thinks about me. Those of you who'd like to interact with me, I'd like to interact with you. And those of you who'd like to hate on me, please lick my sweaty nutsack.
No, and I do understand that, obviously, because like, who else are you gonna be but yourself, essentially, and that you're in the position that you're in, and as someone that an outside perspective, there's no changing it. Essentially, like, there's nothing you can do. You kind of have to accept certain things in life. I feel like I've never murdered someone, but I've accepted my own bullshit that I've done in my past, so I understand that perspective, because what else could you do? You can't just sit there for 12 years and constantly think about the bad things you've done. You kind of have to go towards more of a positive mindset and progression. And now you're a pastor of like 150 people, I read.
157. Well, our church has 157 people that come. Like tomorrow, I'm speaking about gratitude. I'm gonna give you my sermon in a nutshell, in a 2-minute nutshell right now. Gratitude. I'm thankful that God gave me another day on the earth. I'm really appreciative. I appreciate God's giving me another day on the earth. God is say no. When you say, I'm really sad, I'm really pissed off, things are going really bad in my life, God says, yes, they are. Have some more of that shit. And when you say, hey, things are not the best, but I'm okay. I have my health. I'm hungry, but I've got a little something to eat later. God says, oh, you're thankful for those things. Have a little bit more. God only knows how to say yes. Use gratitude. Feel it. Spend a moment just in gratitude to the creator of the universe. Thank you, God, for my life. Thank you for caring so much about me, not to kill me even though I killed other people. Thank you for giving me a second opportunity. And you know what? Your life will get better every moment. I don't know a soul who's listening to this whose life is harder than mine. Now, my life is hard because it's my own fault. I made those choices and I did those things. It's my fault my life is hard, but it is hard. And it's harder than your life. And I'm happy. What is your excuse?
Yeah, that it makes sense. Is there any further questions that anybody has, Aran, Anton?
I have two, I guess. Is there something that people on the outside may take for granted? Obviously, from outside of the obvious ones, of being free and stuff. Is there anything in particular that like you really miss from, I guess, regular life that a lot of people would take for granted? And also your book that you're writing at the minute, what can people expect to hear about in that book? And also, is there plans to write a third book after that?
Mm-hmm. Well, the book question first. The book it's called Concentration Camp 2000, and there's two parts to the book. It's really two short mini books in one book. The first is the La Jolla Christmas Massacre that occurred in 2019, and I've researched it, talked to the people. They're here with me, the people who perpetrated it. I know I've talked to some of the people who are on the outside. And I've researched it really thoroughly. And the reason I want to bring that story to the world is because it's a story that nobody else even understands. You can't understand it. There's like 15 people were killed. But why or how? How could that happen? And how could it be that in a prison, prisoners have AK-47? How could that be? I want to explore all of those questions and talk about the second part of it is about Sector C, Panama's, where I live, Panama's clandestine torture facility that's used by the United States, Canada, the UK, and Australia, and how it's used by the international community and what it consists of and what kind of torture is it. Those things I want to talk about. I want to bring those things to light in the world. It's important that the world knows those questions. What was your first question, Aaron? I'm sorry.
It was just around like, is there anything in particular outside of the obvious things that people, I guess, in regular everyday may take for granted that you now see, I guess, is something you miss or being extremely important?
Like, I think that things that I took for granted was the love that other people showed me that I didn't give back. The love that my family gave me that I threw away like a fucking idiot. The love that a woman once gave me that I walked all over her. I didn't return her respect and love. Things I can't get back, my family. Things I can't fix. What do I miss from here? I tell you something I miss in here terribly, and this is strange, but I miss the way a woman smells. There's anything more beautiful. And I'm not talking about sex. I'm not. But just the presence of a woman in a room makes just the presence of a woman, the way she smells, the way she moves, the way she drinks coffee, the way she laughs, the way that she cries. Something so wonderful. Wonderful. I love women. And I don't mean it, I'm not talking in a dirty way. Now, the presence of women is so wonderful, and I'm so deprived of that here in hell. All my closest friends are actually women. They really are. I don't have that many close friends as men because I seem to make men unhappy, nervous being around other. I mean, either they're a follower or an enemy. I can't have a male friend just because I don't know. Being the boss is just I just can't. I don't know. I don't know why I can't. It's not because I don't want to, but I miss the presence, the wonderful and feminine presence of women. God, they're so wonderful, aren't they? And I've been removed from them for 12 years. I mean, I've had a lot of sex, but that's not what I'm not even talking about that. You know, man, I think true man, real man, alpha man, nothing without a woman.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me because obviously when you're being brought in escorts, you could say hookers, essentially what is the prostitutes. They're there to serve a job, and a lot of them have horrible mental health and obviously have faced their own atrocities. So they're using that as a means to gain finances, and it's not the same as the love of a woman that's not a paid prostitute.
I love them girls that have daddy issues. Come and sit next to daddy, baby.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to close out? Does anyone have any more questions before we close this out? I thought this went fairly well because we had technical difficulties. Everything came through loud and clear. Very interesting conversation. But if you, Anton or Aaron, have any more like last kind of questions, I would say do them now before probably his phone dies.
Guys, I really appreciate you letting me be on the show. God bless each and every one of you. I hope that in some way it was educational. And the thing I'd like for John Q. Public or Janie Q. Public who's listening to this podcast to take away is just be careful what you focus on. And also, it doesn't matter where you are in life. In the deepest ditch, you can still be happy and you can still pull yourself out, but you're going to have to fucking work at it.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you for doing this and even shouting us out. This was an opportunity that we decided to take that many people may have not. But I thought this was worth the time and it valued something to me that I think people can take away from this conversation. But thank you for joining us, man.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Thanks so much, guys. God bless each and every.
I'll see you, Bill.
You United States and Ireland. And in Panama, we're a real international bunch. God bless. I'm going.
Yeah, see you, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you very much.
All right. Let's talk.
I want Anton to go first because I could tell by his body language for like the last 20-30 minutes that there's definitely something on his mind.
There were a lot of contradictions in the last 20-30 minutes of shit that he said.
I know. And then for all the audio listeners, if you only saw our expressions, will be up on YouTube, but essentially I'm trying to make light of this dark situation. That's what I do on this podcast. But I was making a lot of faces.
I mean, we've both been smoking consistently this whole episode. I smoked like 3 bowls, 2 of which were
This is a light weed pen, and then my weed pen died, and I was like, no.
I got a piece so bad right now though, so I might have to do that and then pop back in for banter. But no, so like my life is perfect right now. My life is the worst it's ever been. I live a life that's better than most people. My life absolutely sucks. Whether or not that's just the highs and lows of inside the the prison, but like
I'm sure your mental health can't be that great, and you have the egotistical like behavior of like, because you can tell,
he walks around like king shit for sure. I'm sure he does.
There was definitely it was very contradictory, I think, because he was like, I've repented, and I kind of get what he means in the sense of like, I'm sorry for what I've done or whatever, but I don't sit around thinking about it all the time.
Right.
And I know that kind of comes across like extremely like selfish, which in a lot of ways it is. I get what he was kind
he's
of.
in a survival situation, though. I feel like that's probably necessary to not like if you're distracted with your your misdeeds of the past, you're probably gonna get killed. Like,
that's why I said I want people to understand that perspective. Yes, he murdered 5 people, but like I have to think about what, and I've done this with tons of true crime cases, is how would I be in this situation, right? And the fact that I've been fascinated by this stuff since I was a kid. Like I was researching fucking Paul Bernardo and Carlo Moco when I was like 17 after hearing it in law class. Like this idea of like, and me and Aaron have had this conversation on a Patreon episode, so go fucking pay for that. But essentially of like trying to put your shoes. Yeah, he plugged a lot of stuff on there. But like with what, like, how would you fill these people's shoes? What would it feel like? What would it be like? Essentially. And that's why what would I do after 12 years after I've done something? I've been in prison. I'd be like, how the fuck am I supposed to keep living in this guilt? You'd have to just like leave it. And
did you guys think like, I mean, the 16-month-old baby?
Okay, I want to see your Aaron. Yeah.
I was shocked by that, to be honest. But
I saw Aaron's face, it made me laugh.
I was like, what the fuck? But then he did say like that I think he's been like married and divorced twice since he's been in jail. Now, how official those marriages were, I don't really know. But I will say, right, and this is probably going to come across really bad and make anyone who listens to this think I'm a piece of shit of a person, but I was trying to really like put myself into his situation, and I can kind of, that's why I asked the Kool-Aid question. I can kind of see how once you get into that life and it starts to fucking spiral, how it ends up being like, I suppose it's like the Conor McGregor effect where you're like, I am the best, I'm the fucking baddest, I'm the toughest, I'm the this, I'm the that. And I can kind of see a little bit, and I don't personally think he's gotten rid of that, because every now and again he would come out with something. I mean, the fact that he even would do this in the first place is kind of it's hard to figure out the motivation.
That ever goes away?
He's probably going to listen to this too.
This is the thing, and this is not against him necessarily, but I don't think that that whole Wild Bill persona is completely gone. Like when I asked the question about does anybody fuck with you, he's like, who's gonna fuck with me? I'm the baddest one in here. I'm Wild Bill and all this.
Yeah,
he was going off about Wild Bill's hose as well. There was definitely still like tooting his own horn a little bit, but
it's egotistical. But how are you not egotistical in a prison system? Because you have to be. It's like it's trying to be a rapper and not be egotistical, because that you have to talk about yourself and your fucking shit. And to me, like, because he's in a prison system setting, right, where you have to be fucking big, strong. If you're even anyway kind of feminine or even came off as a pussy, you would be a target and you would be someone's bitch for a long time.
So do you guys think that like the switch from the maximum or the minimum to the maximum came because he just ran out of money? Like he was living too large in prison? Man? That's where my brain was going with that.
Yeah, I think that has something to definitely do with it. I think it's a huge part of it. And I do, from a little bit of research I've done.
Because you read that article, right, that he mentioned?
Yeah, the one from the Mirror. I actually had that on the screen when he was talking about that.
Oh, no shit.
But from what I gather, I would imagine that had a lot to do with it, was running out of money. And then I think he started to cause problems. I know he said something else there about that article and whatever, but I think within the jail itself, he started to cause problems in the sense of I think he was trying to use his like Wild Bill power to get friends off with stuff, and like the other prisoners were getting fucked with, and he's tried to like step in and be, again, this is why I like, it's like the Conor McGregor thing, like he tries to be like larger than life. I think.
Hey, everybody calm down, okay? Wild Bill is here.
Yeah, like, and I
his
think
day
he
puts on tape.
probably thought, I'm nearly sure I listened to a show where he talked about it. He was like, yeah, I basically thought that, like, well, this is my prison, and the only reason I'm inside this prison is because I choose to be for right now. So he started trying to like tell guards what to do and and then it
Your
became a
mindset. That's why I
problem.
kept asking about his mindset, because it's like I want to know what's going on up here, and he'll never exactly tell you because he's
No.
playing a character of who he is. And in those people in those settings, because even the small amount of I've seen in jail settings and stuff like that, nobody is trying to act vulnerable. Everyone's got a fucking shield on. They got a riot shield in front of their face. You just can't fucking see it.
We're three total strangers. I don't think for one moment that somebody is going to open up to three total strangers like that. Truly open up, and show vulnerability.
Bill, when's the last time you cried, man? What's the last time?
Jesus Christ, he's going to get out and murder all of us.
I can't come to Canada. Just Trudeau won't let him. I got nothing.
Folks.
Honestly, from the conversations I've had, I have issues with some of the things he's said. But at the same time, I knew what I was getting into when we had this conversation. Like, I knew what was going to happen, essentially, and I knew the questions I wanted to ask. So, and that's why I said, for the people that get offended by this, like, shut the fuck up. It's what we do here. I would like to talk more. We talk about true crime all the time. And I've had people give me reviews and shit because of some of my points of views. And it's just like, then don't listen to the show. This is what we're trying to do, is something different. We got presented this opportunity and I took it.
Yeah, this was interesting.
Yeah, and like, I don't think for a second, because we've done this, that any of us support what he's done.
No,
or think it's a good thing or anything like that. It's not. But I do think it was quite fascinating to talk to somebody in that situation. And you pointed out there a second ago, Anton, how there's, I think, maybe so many highs and lows, and you can see where he kind of has maybe a little bit of a split personality, and it's hard to kind of, maybe he does want to be a different person or wish that none of this shit ever happened. But then that's why I kept asking about like life in prison. How do you not get fucked with if you're this like super nice guy who just says his prayers every day and like loves everybody and shares all your stuff, but you've got no money to pay anyone off? How are you not dead? Or how do you not have to fucking smash people every day?
He probably has
if the prison is the way he says it is, that nobody cares when somebody gets murdered, then he probably does.
He probably has to fight all the time. He's a big dude. I actually wanted to ask the question, have you ever one-punched somebody? Because because he's a big dude, I'm sure if like you just got to throw your weight into a fucking punch, he like all those little Spanish dudes, he could fucking knock them out. But like, you know what I mean? So you'd have to fucking fight to survive. And that's why I kept saying like, he's thinking about himself. Okay. Either way, it's a selfish mindset. But the thing is, in his state of being, in his mental health and who he is, he has to fight or he dies.
Yeah. I had a question that I was
anymore if he doesn't do that.
I had a question that I was worried might be too dark, but the way he was describing the prison and it being as horrible as it is, it was like, does anybody just ever have had enough of it and just walk outside and just get shot by the guards? Just like suicide by cop it, just being like, you know what? Nope, I'm done.
I would have been curious to hear, because like I'm sure like I was trying to dive deeper into like, because I'm fascinated obviously by true crime and it sounds fucked, but murder and stuff like that. I was raised on fucking horror movies.
Yeah. When he was just like, don't watch movies of people killing each other. I'm like, I love horror movies.
I was raised on horror movies, and I was raised on artists like Necro, which I'm trying to get Aran into, because maybe I want to get him on the show, because like he talked in points of views of like Charles Manson and all these like serial killers. And I was like 13, 14. So to get this opportunity to someone like me that has been interested in this stuff is quite fascinating, you could say.
Yeah, and I didn't really agree with that whole like I did it in parts where he said be careful what you consume, X, Y, and Z, or maybe more so about be careful the life I guess your kids are leading. Like I have an 8-year-old boy, so I can kind of attest to that. There's I think a massive issue there with just handing them like iPads and fucking gaming consoles and shit. I think in a different way it fucks them up. But this thing of being like, don't watch anything to do with true crime, or don't like
satanic panic bullshit.
And it's like, dude, like, I mean, just for example, look behind me and look at my fucking arms, and like I didn't like.
Your ghost ship tattoo is fucking dope, and
I love it, dude.
You have a ghost ship tattoo.
But
It's
yeah,
so random as hell.
it's literally the satanic panic bullshit.
Yeah.
It's this causes this. It's like, no, it doesn't. Because there are
And I was
plenty of
gonna
us
say,
that
and
cut
like,
their
and
teeth
he
were raised on
watches
that
his
that have
fucking
never killed
interviews and
anyone.
stuff like that. So understand, man, we're coming from a different perspective, and we are just fucking three people trying to analyze your situation. If you end up seeing this afterwards, because it could happen. He's gone through his YouTube stuff. He's told me, but like the fact that like all of these prisoners, including fucking Dahmer, and I'm not fucking saying that you are Dahmer, dude, but like essentially like these and we're actually, when this releases, the Dahmer episode should be out. So fucking Dahmer just like went to, he's like, oh Jesus, I'm fucking Christian now, absolved of all my sins, so to speak. But Dahmer's an interesting person that you'll hear about what me and Aaron discuss about him. But essentially, like, it's just like all these people that turn towards Jesus and think that he's going to soak up all your guilt and sins is not true.
Y'all know where I stand on that.
Yeah, I'm not a fucking. I know I said it at the beginning of this podcast, but the more I'm not a Satanist, I'm not nothing. I am who I am. I don't believe in labeling yourself, but this idea that you need, I pray to my higher self. I don't pray to anything else but who I am.
I just hate the Christian hypocrisy. That's my.
It's
that's
always
my
Christians. Sometimes it's Catholics, but it's always Christians that are like, Jesus, save me. I've killed
born again is a
people.
whole fucking thing, and there's a reason that it's generally like mostly addicts and hardcore criminals that become born again Christians, just because they've fucked up so badly that that's what they have to do. And if it makes them a better person, good. I support it. But
yeah,
more often than not, it makes them very judgmental and reinforced with their bullshit.
I really wanted to jump in there when he went on his like and again, I don't mean this in like an offensive way, but when he went on like his Jesus Christ rant thing.
Yeah,
I kind of wanted to jump in and just be like, nah, what if I don't believe in that though?
Yep.
Yeah. Because I've even said this, like I was talking to a guy at work that we were doing this, but it wasn't about this conversation, but I said something like, I don't even know if I believe in Jesus. It could be recycled stories based on fucking horror. So like all this stuff that people always bring up, it's a fictitious thing that was created. And I'm not against anyone that is religious. I've said this a million times in the podcast. I just don't believe in labeling shit. And I think that whoever we are beyond this is probably just like Jesus if he was a real person. So that's my point of view, because we're all gods and goddesses, our own rights. I love that I slipped in the reptilian thing. I was like, bang.
Yeah, that was I was waiting for it. Did you see the lizard people in jail, man?
I'm glad I asked him those normal questions. That the fact that he saw like
he gave the answer that I expected on that. Honestly, it was very No, not even just that, but just being like, no, I ain't see no ghosts, man. Fuck that. And then talking about how he had
he's insane, though. He wants to come across as sane as possible. So he wouldn't say anything. And then when he said that he actually saw the guy, if that is true,
big if true,
it kind of makes sense, because the person that you murdered might come back to try to haunt you or fuck with you and be like, look what you did to me. So it's bad, but
even subconsciously, just your brain fucking with you. And then when he was talking about like everything in the air is quiet, like I can tell it's like, it's probably like a baser animal instinct that's kicking in, being like, yo, some shit's about to go down, so get somewhere fucking safe if you can, or get ready to fight. Like it's your body preparing because it's picking up on all of the like subconscious cues that you're not, consciously processing. I'm stoned as fuck right now.
There was another thing that he jumped on. I can't remember which one of us said something, but he was like, I want to make it clear that it was strictly women or something like that.
Yeah.
And I just found that was a really...
Sure it was.
Yeah, but I just found it was a really strange, like for a guy who is supposedly, repentant and all this stuff, and he's such a good, nice guy and loves everybody and smiles at everybody, and it just seemed like such a weird thing to like shoehorn in there out of nowhere. And he's like, I want to make that really clear. I want everybody to understand that it was strictly women. I'm like, why would you...
I was going to actually ask and I was like, no, just because if you know me at all about listening to this podcast, I don't give a fuck. I was going to ask about the rape stuff in prison. Be like, how bad is it? Is it that bad? Because it's pretty bad even in Canada, from what I've fucking heard. So
that scares the shit out of me.
Oh yeah, imagine I would, if I was in a Panamanian prison, I would be somebody's bitch.
So here's the thing, and I suppose in a way, maybe to like get the closing thoughts.
I'd hold the guy's pocket as he walks around, like, yes, master.
On him as a dude, and what you think about him now, having talked to him for the last 2 hours or whatever. I personally if I really try and put myself like in his life story to the little knowledge I have of it, I can kind of see myself maybe. I don't even know if I'd be able to do what he's doing now with that whole spiel. With like, I'm trying to be good. I'm trying to be. I think I would have leaned so hard into the Wild Bill thing just out of pure fear.
Yeah,
I don't want to be like, I don't want to be raped. I don't want to be stabbed to death. I don't want to be like made do anything I don't want to do, like against my will or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think just out of pure fear, I could see myself like really leaning into that. Like, I can use this to my advantage. So I'm going to smash everybody. So I'm not the victim.
I was going to say, when
Aaron,
he says someone is murdered once a day, it's him doing it.
Do you think that, so maybe it is like you were saying, like somewhat of a split, like the person who we spoke to is his public face, whereas the person that he has to be on the inside is Wild Bill.
Yeah, like that's the impression that I was left with. What about you guys? Like, how do you feel?
He said that he works for the government in there as a prison chaplain.
That fairly quickly,
which was interesting.
Yes,
there's stuff that my candle went out. I was gonna blow it out. Like, are you afraid of the dark?
Oh, is that one of the ones with the
it changes color?
Yes, I love those candles. Those are great.
That's what we had for the Halloween special. For all the audio listeners, the candle was burning in the background. I was gonna do "Are You Afraid of the Dark?" and then Aaron, do you know what "Are You Afraid of the Dark" is? Did you watch it?
Okay, of course I did.
We're talking about
Midnight Society.
We were talking about doing the fucking talking about that actually for the show. But like, this was a crazy opportunity and we took it. We went from talking to Tommy Chong to fucking this guy, so it's kind of crazy. And I'm sure that you don't know what's gonna happen on Strange Brew. There might be other things down the road to do with stuff around true crime. Who knows? I want to know like final thoughts. I did have something I was going to say and I did forget, but it's okay.
No, this is super interesting. I did, for all the listeners, I didn't look into this much more than surface level. I wanted to go in and just not know anything.
Wanted to pull a Billy.
Yeah. Well, I didn't want my own like confirmation bias or prejudices from looking up his shit to like take.
I wanted Chelsea said she's like, don't have Billy on that episode.
And then like go in and look into his shit, because now I feel like I have a better understanding of at least a portion of his personality, so I can kind of better analyze the story itself.
Yeah, essentially, like, I would have loved to bring Billy on some of this shit, but I don't know what the fuck that dude's gonna say.
That like, would be
like, he might say some shit. He might not, because Billy doesn't give a fuck, right? Yeah. So he might just say something like out of the blue of like, like, I don't know about that, and then he gets angry over the phone. That's what I was like trying to avoid, of like, maybe fucking don't.
I feel like Billy dude would have hung up on us. I don't think he. I mean, I don't know, but you know what this has got me wondering. Do you think we could get Joe Exotic?
Oh, that would be
amazing. Fucking nuts.
Right?
How do we get in contact with him?
I'm sure there are ways.
And I think he's
how much do you think
like really interested in all that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. How much do you think he charges in commissary to get him on the show? You think a 50 will do it?
Fuck, I don't care. I'd pay it.
Yeah, I'll throw $50 in and get Joe Exotic on the show.
That'd be crazy.
That'd be oh my god.
I like Joe Exotic. I'm just joking. I don't like him. His character is fucked. Like that whole watching even that thing of how we just like with the tigers and like kicking it out of the way and shit. It's just like such a crazy story. But like who knows what's coming? And like I said, like if you're someone that maybe fucking like doesn't know what we do by now at Strange Brew, like you don't need to fucking give a negative comment because you may not agree with what we're doing or whatever. I've been called so many things with stupid reviews of these guys have no intelligence. They're fucking not got no brains. You know what we're doing, right? We smoke weed, we drink, and we talk about true crime.
We're shrimp brains.
And what?
We're shrimp brains. We're idiots.
Yeah, it's just like according to some people that are probably far less intelligent than we are, and they like to sit there on like their Yelp reviews and comment. But for the people that do understand and enjoy this stuff, obviously 5-star reviews, man. Go pick up my book. It's called "I Didn't Kill Anybody."
Are we plugging? Are we putting links up?
We can. I wasn't going to, but you fucking said it.
It doesn't matter. We don't have to do it. I didn't make a fucking promise.
I don't want him yelling at me through Instagram.
So block him.
It's true. And I have WhatsApp, but I never owned WhatsApp. Downloaded it. Yeah, I thought this is pretty crazy. I don't know if you guys got any final thoughts. He messaged me first. I talked to him for a day and I said, hey, let's do this. Seems pretty interesting. And I kind of got what I expected.
Yeah.
So it was obviously it's someone who is in the mindset of a gangster, of an ex-hitman, a killer, a convicted murderer, and it's not through the eyes of the victims. As we said, we couldn't find much even on the victims, even to even say their names, to say, hey,
Mhm.
these are the people that he killed. You know, I mean, you obviously have some condolences towards the families and what they went through, but they don't. We couldn't find anything. So, final thoughts.
I don't know. Like I said, I think there's this weird. He's probably in this weird position where, it's a necessity. The life he's basically caused himself to have now. It's a necessity to continue with the Wild Bill thing, and
Mhm.
maybe there is a small sliver of him that's like, "Fuck, I wish I could get out of this situation and do some different shit." But
Yeah.
again, when you're that deep into that hole of like that
Yeah.
lifestyle, I don't know if somebody came to the door tomorrow and went, "You know what? Here, you can just get out." I
Yeah.
don't know
What his
how.
lifestyle would be like. He sent 2 more messages. Let's listen to them.
I cannot believe that thing lasted that long, that it didn't turn off. Hey, thanks so much for having me on the show. I really enjoyed it. God bless, brother. And let me know, more or less, when will the show come out? When do you think it'll come out? Also, please remember to put the book link and the Instagram and Facebook links up. Please.
I feel like I should do it. I don't know.
You
His
probably
Facebook
should,
yet.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
you
will
have
do
to
it
do it
for
now.
him. And he probably will listen to this. And like I said, man, we don't know you personally if you're watching this after the fact. We're only taking outside perspectives, and we're a show like if for the people that know us too and stuff like that, we do something different. We're not going to take the angle that everybody takes and stuff like that with anything we do. And that's why I do think that Stranger Podcast, even with the advent of like being Aran included within this year and Anton included the last 2 years, it's became what it is today. And I think that we are producing some of the best podcasts out there. I really do. And if people they're not hip to this yet, and it's the first one you're listening to, we have a lot of stuff coming, and there's a lot of stuff you can listen to already that's out there. But I feel like that we are growing as a brand, so to speak, into something that could be pretty incredible in the next 5 years. Any final thoughts? Crazy.
Again, yeah, like I
nuts.
don't know. I'm kind of like a little bit. I'm trying to like process the whole thing. I don't know. Like there's a weird part of me that's still like intrigued and fascinated by his character.
Yeah.
And it's got me thinking more like you said, Anton, about like people like Joe Exotic, and there's these other like just
true.
bizarre characters that I'm kind of like, fuck, I
Well, this
want
could
to
be
know
even
more.
if
Larger than life personas. And I would
Yeah.
imagine that at certain points that persona has to take over. Even for
Mhm.
people that don't end up, in a violent or infamous way, but end up famous, like Hunter Thompson. Hunter Thompson was a persona, like the Raoul Duke
Yeah.
persona, and it became so real that it became the only thing people came to see, and he wouldn't disappoint that way. So it's like at a certain point you would think that this person that you've developed out of either necessity or out of trying to use it to get fame or make a brand for yourself or what have you, like after a while that's just as real a personality as anything
No, for
else.
sure, because you can have a a character in your mind and you play. Like I've played characters in my life towards other people, you know what I mean? So I can understand if you got to be in a setting where it's all about survival. You know what? And for the people that are listening to, this is why you support the Patreon, because you might see a conversation come along where maybe we put it behind a paywall where we discuss some of these thoughts and ideas in more detail. And for the people that understand what we're doing, that are actually paying for content to discuss some of these things that people might get offended by.
Can you say that any more condescending?
Offended. I don't know why I went female, but yeah. Pretty crazy. I don't know if you guys got, but that was nuts. Just this came out of the blue, and within a week or two,
this came together real quick.
So, if you're interested by Wild Bill, I guess fucking go buy his book. Give him
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That's the thing,
Yeah. If you're interested, hey, like there's no shame in your game, buying a book. I don't know, buying a book by a convicted murderer, but like people read shit about Jeffrey Dahmer. Look how fucking big that whole fucking series has got, and the fact that we're gonna like we've talked about it by the time this comes out.
If they've made it to this far in the episode, that's
crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy shit. Well, I wanted to definitely have like an outro towards this and our thoughts after the fact, so people can really hear our opinions and stuff like that and how we felt about the conversation. But like I said, Patreon will probably come along for something like this.
Very intriguing, and I'm glad we did this. This was
Yeah, and Aaron, you guys need to close it off. I just want to say, yeah, for the fuckers, support the Patreon. Again, I will fucking plug it because Halloween Resurrection commentaries on both me and Aaron's Patreon. So that shit's fucking fun as fuck to listen to. And we have like
motherfucker.
We have the behind the scenes of the Halloween special. We have like the full raw cuts of Spectrophilia Part 1 and Part 2. Both parts had almost a half an hour cut from it. So there's a lot of stuff on the Patreon that people should definitely tune into because it's a lot of fun.
Abso-fucking-lutely.
Aaron, you got anything to say, boy?
I concur. I don't know. I'm still a bit like,
He's like,
kind of
just
like I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why it's so fascinating to me. I'm just like, it's so bizarre to talk to somebody that's fucking killed probably shit tons of people by the sound of things, and just how I don't know. I don't know how I feel, to be honest. Not saying that I'm going like, oh, he's such a good guy or anything.
No.
I'm just kind of fascinated how like what it sounds like is a regular, somewhat unremarkable person just goes on this landslide and it just fucking.
But the thing is, you think about situations like this and you expect it to be like, you know, some crazy dramatic thing as though it was a movie, and that's, you know, what our, at least what my brain goes to is the, you know, the short version of it, the montage. But it's not. It's just that long slippery slope of it just being like, yeah, nope, shit sandwich, shit sandwich, shit sandwich. And eventually, you know, it sounded like him, in his mind, it did seem as though him killing that dude in self-defense was a good thing that happened to him, you know, because it sent him down that road. It made him all of the money, all of the women, all of the coke that he was talking about.
Now,
and I think it's easy to lament that when you're stuck in a Panamanian prison. I think it's very easy to lament that, but I don't think that, I don't know if he would have. I would love to know what he has to say about, like, if he wouldn't have gotten caught, would that have changed? Would he have reached that road where he was tired of the excess? Because it sounds like he was also enjoying the excess while he was in that first prison.
Yeah, and I definitely got the vibe off him throughout the conversation that he maybe felt like he was the nail, and then when he had the opportunity to become the hammer, that was like really enticing, and he was like, yeah, and maybe
I love being the hammer though.
Well,
as
what's the
part
other
of the way he
option, though,
justifies it. Yeah, this is the thing, and that's why I was like kind of playing in my mind. I was playing a little bit of devil's advocate. I was like,
you have to.
I was like, as fucked up as this is, I can kind of see where he's coming from like.
What do you think I was doing? I was like, you know, I'm just gonna go into this. Like, I said this to Chelsea. I was like, you know what? I'm giving the world full Thomas from now on. I was like, they get all of me, and I'm not gonna hold back, because what's the fucking point? You only live once, and that's why I'm like doing these things differently. And I know the fans have probably seen a change in who I am and stuff like that. But like, I'm just coming at this at the angle that I want to do things. And I don't really give a fuck if people enjoy it. If there's like 5 people that want to be, I'll be your cult leader, I'm down.
Wow.
I actually want to say so when he was talking about like the pastor and like over the 157 people, I wanted to be like, so like a cult? And like, but I didn't want to come across as being like, oh, he's going to get mad at me if I say this. Because religion to me in some forms is kind of a cult.
It's just a bigger cult. That's all religion
If you
is.
think about all the cult leaders, it was all backed by kind of some sort of religion, at least like, but Charles Manson, but his religion was acid, the almighty psychedelic that if you give it to enough people and you don't take it and you brainwash them using CIA tactics, because Charles Manson was an MK Ultra victim, you could see where it goes down a dark path.
What a mouthful.
I want to talk about that. I've shouted out the Charles Manson episode for like 2 years, but it will come eventually. And the idea, I want to do all in one, but it's probably gonna have to be a 2-parter of like 2 hours each. I'm sure Aaron wants to come in on that episode.
Yeah, I'll talk shit about him for as long as you like.
Uncle Charlie's gonna be fun. Yeah.
That might be all four of us, because I'll ask Billy, like, are you interested in doing this? Because that
should
might
be.
be like 3 hours each episode, considering the banter. But you know, we love and appreciate the listeners that understand what we're trying to do and come at it from a different perspective. And I do believe the people that listen to Strange Brew Podcast and even First Class Horror will understand where we're kind of coming from in the context of how we did this episode, because it is just 3 fucking dudes all that are all best friends talking to a murderer and just been like, and also have dark minds and being like, and all had bad mental health at one point, back, well, what, you know, and just asking random questions, because that's really what it was. It was,
Well, everybody's drawn to true crime for their own reasons, and the abnormal psychology has always been what fascinates me the most, as to like what makes that person that person.
yeah. So that's
so
a good time.
just understanding the journey of them and how they get there is absolutely very, very intriguing to me.
And who knows, you might hear more thoughts about this too, because me and Aaron have yet to record even the Dahmer episode, but that's coming 2 or 3 days essentially from where we are now. So you might hear kind of us even branch more into those conversations of like that true crime and like the point of view of a serial killer and all that type of stuff, because it is interesting. And I'm going to give it full tilt. I'm going to go full Thomas on that one, and I'm going to fucking really dive into my thoughts about the famous Jeffrey Dahmer. So make sure you tune into that if you haven't heard already.
Stay strange, fuckers.
Yes, Aaron, what do you have to say? Thumbs up?
I concur.
That was a good episode.
That's his new thing.